G Performance car, the number 55, and the Helsingvelv number 78 machine. Both of them have gone head-to-head, and Team Helsingvelv 78 have got 2 race 1 wins, so they're doing better in the race that awards the meritocracy. But nevertheless, in the reverse grid ones, that's where they're losing all their points, because RSI Sport by G Performance have been far more consistent in that department. This means that they've clobbered their way up, and they are a few points up ahead of Team Helsingvelv. But this battle could be going all the way to the very end, Arjuna.
And I mean, with these multiple races per race weekend, as I like to call them, it always sets up what is going to be a very interesting championship finale, and that's going to be at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, so a very interesting track to say the least, and I have a feeling that is going to be a very interesting way to wrap up our season. Take a look on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see the times start to come in, and we're already about 10 minutes into the first portion of qualifying, so a number of cars starting to set representative lap times as well. N-Race Esports in the 199 BMW Z4 GT3 currently topping the timing sheets, and let's just touch on that very quickly here, Samuel. I mean, yesterday BMW Sim Live, a very interesting event. I had the good fortune to be part of it on the production side of things, but a lot of interesting reveals, a lot of interesting news. Not just what you would have expected either. We got hardware announcement, we got iRacing announcements, we got everything that you'd want. We got the announcement firstly. We should start with this, the very interesting concept of a sim racing wheel that can also be used in the real world. That partnership with Fanatec to produce a BMW M4 GT3 steering wheel, and well, the more important thing for us here in the booth, Samuel, we're talking about iRacing. The BMW M4 GT3 still a car in development in the real world, but in just a few weeks' time, before Christmas, iRacing members are going to have the opportunity to drive an early version of that car, and we will continue to receive updates until it gets homologated, and at which point we will have the final version of the car in the game. It's great to see, and great to have increased involvement from the likes of BMW in the series.
100% Arjuna, and the best part is that all the drivers and teams in the IVRA GT Sprint Series are already discussing the possibility of latching onto that car once it comes on. Of course, that largely depends on how the car functions, whether it suits their driving style, and if it is competitive or not in a championship like this one. But it already puts a big smile on my face to see more manufacturer involvement. BMW have been there. BMW have recently launched the M4 GT4 here. Then they've gone with the M4 GT3 machine even before it sets out to race in any GT3 championship in the world. It just shows the kind of trust and commitment that these big brands are having towards the world of sim racing. And there's no reason why it shouldn't put a big smile on your face. I'm pumped up. And apart from BMW as well, Dallara have ended up gone and doing the same thing with the Dallara IRO1, the new project car that's developed in the real world with all the blueprint drawings, but it's going to be raced out first in the virtual world. It just baffles me and it amazes me to see how much commitment these big manufacturers are putting in.
We might talk about that a little bit later on as well, but for now, let's ride on board with one of our favorite cars throughout the field, the CXR Project Black 383, and they're the only team in the field to be competing in the very old, venerable 4GT GT3, probably going to be one of the cars on the chopping block as we get a new influx of GT3 machinery into the iRacing service. Paul Searle still sits in third, a 1:44.400. His best lap time was also his last time around. You see more times coming in. HM Engineering down in seventh. BOP is an interesting point of discussion here, Samuel, because, well, the Ferrari used to be a car that was very, very strong in a straight line. However, over the last, I'd say, about 6 months or so, it's been going through a bit of an evolution as the iRacing BOP staff take a axe to it, and no longer so strong in a straight line, but there are some teams that are still able to extract a lot of performance out of that car.
Yeah, I remember 3-4 months ago the Ferrari was a real hotshot, but quite a few of the teams trusting this car and going ahead and trying to use it quite a bit in competitive GT3 races. But now the performance has shifted with the BOP and it's gone more towards the BMW, towards the Audi, and to an extent towards Mercedes as well, depending on what series you're racing. Here, of course, Pulsar and the CXR Racing Black Machine, they've gone for the Ford GT. And the only reason why they've done that, because their teammate didn't quite have any other GT3 car on the service, so that's why they went for the Ford in the first place. But it's holding up quite well. But nevertheless, the BMW should have a bit of an edge at Daytona, with the BOP favouring it. And also its clear straight line advantage, giving it quite a bit of a head start in the big NASCAR turns that we have around here. In the corners, its stability should help out, but of course other cars can catch up right there. But on the straights, it is by far and away having quite a big advantage.
Right on board with one of our favorite team names across the entire iRacing service, the Roaring Chicken Nuggets, on their way to pick up their morning breakfast, I would assume. They do have a bit of a festive theme to their car as well. For those who are maybe watching and able to zoom in on various elements on the car, they've got some festive highlights, especially on the rear wing. A bit hard for you to tell, but the Roaring Chicken Nuggets crossed the line once again. Lap time this time, a 1:45.776. Doesn't improve on any of their previous times. We've got 23 drivers that have set lap time so far, and well, somewhat the interesting thing about all IVRA qualifying sessions is once you head out on track, you cannot come back down the pit lane and head out again. So we're already down to the point where there's only about 4 or 5 cars still circulating around the track. Everyone else has done qualifying attempts and abandoned it, basically. They're back down on the lane.
In terms of qualifying tyre performance, it's a bit like your average cost curve in economics. It tends to fall down initially. That's your lap time, the more laps you tend to do, and then beyond the point, your tyre performance, it just starts to dip away. And so the time that you spend for each lap time just starts to rise up because the tyre does not have any performance anymore. It's around lap 2 or 3 when you have the ultimate pace from the tyres with the conditions perfectly ready for you. That's when you usually go in and knock your best lap times. And after that, the tyre just starts to degrade. It's not as grippy anymore. And so all the teams think, well, there's no point for me to stay on the track anymore. Might as well just go back in, abandon qualifying because my best lap time's done. I can't go on fresh rubber. I can't improve. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. We might spend quite a bit of time watching only these couple of cars doing the runs in, but nevertheless, if it builds up for a good race later on, so be it.
Speaking of good races, there's another race that basically right after we finish our broadcast duties here, we're all going to be tuning in to watch the Sakhir Grand Prix, as it is. Second consecutive race weekend from the Emirates of Bahrain, Xanadu Motorsports, through, I think it is technically turn number 7. It's a very interesting discussion topic here, Summer. What number is what quarter? Because, well, in traditional American fashion, these banked corners are not just one long sweeping corner. It's 2 technically corners. So, I mean, that's NASCAR 1 and 2. We go down in towards the bus stop now, and then we go in towards NASCAR's 3 and 4.
Don't ask me, Arjuna. I'm refraining from using all the corner numbers here today. It's pretty baffling. Wikipedia says that the bus stop chicane, believe it or not, is 4 corners. By that regard, Daytona should be in California then. It's just crazy. No, honestly, let's not go that way. Let's just call it as they are usually called. And this one should be NASCAR 3 and 4. Which is a bit odd to say when you're in the heat of the moment and saying, oh, there are 2 drivers going side by side at NASCAR 3 and 4. But nevertheless, it is what it is. Then, of course, we go into an undisputed turn number 1. Let's put it that way. Past turn 2, then to the International Horseshoe. And some people call the next corner the kink. Some people call it the turn number 4. I'm going to go for the kink. Then past the second hairpin. It can all get very confusing, but don't worry. We'll come up with the exact unified corner names that everyone usually refers them to. We're not going to go by the Wikipedia one or the one in the driver's briefing because, trust me, that will confuse you to a great degree. As if there weren't any confusing things.
And we should be clear, we're not blaming race control here for that. It's just one of those things. I'm not trying to... It's just, in general, Canadian Tire Motorsports Park as well is the site of our season finale. Another one of those tracks where corner numbers take on a life of their own. The Mario Andretti straightaway is somehow about 4 corners. I'm not sure how that one works, but we'll keep on trucking. Qualifying 1 is over, by the way. You see all the cars down onto the pit lane. Casper de Court in race control, keeping a firm eye on the action. So the 5 cars. We've got 5 cars from warm-up that now advance into qualifying 2, and 10 cars from qualifying 1. So let's just run you through those cars then. That's going to be the 199 N-Race Esports BMW, the number 14 Mag Performance Sim Racing car, Michael Schlacks, qualifying that one this time around. Our favorite car, at least in terms of uniqueness, the CXR Project Black number 383. They're going to make their way into qualifying number 2. The Team Hoisingveld number 48 joins their sister car, the Apex Missers 185, the only Apex Missing representative this time, so they'll be hoping to make double the amount of Apex Missers as last time to make up for that. Altitude Esports, the number 23, they'll get through, along with Mayor SimSpeed Performance, HM Engineering, Archer Brother Esports, and NJB Performance. One thing I am noticing is there are a few Audis in this grouping of cars that we're about to see head out onto the track. Audi, not necessarily what I would have thought would have been one of the stronger options here at the Daytona International Speedway, but nevertheless, we're about to see what happens when they roll out onto track. And just a reminder as well, follow us across all of the RaceSpot channels for more sim racing action. Our wonderful boss Hugo Luis making a very nice graphic for us where you can follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and Instagram. So we've got 5 different platforms trying to engage with you across all 5. Just a reminder, if you're not already subscribed on YouTube, I'm not sure exactly what you're doing, but press that red button, hit the bell next to it, you'll get notified every time we go back live. And, well, it's been a busy year here at RaceSpot because everything that's happened this year, I mean, it's just increased the amount of eyes and attention being placed on sim racing. And, I mean, you've been someone, just like myself, who's kind of jumped into the sim racing world with everything that's happened in this past year. It's really good as we approach the end of this year to just think about what a successful year it's been for sim racing. And yesterday's BMW Sim Live, in many ways, was about celebrating the limited success that a lot of us had in 2020.
Yeah, it has, hasn't it? It's so heartwarming to see the sim racing community come up at the end of the year and realize what we've achieved this year, because with the real racing gone for a long time, all the eyeballs were on us. And honestly, it delivered. The kind of races that we had, the kind of big names that stepped into sim racing and realized that, oh no, we may be big superstars in the real world, but there are faster and better drivers than us on the sim. It just went a long way to prove that sim racing is not just a video game that you play when you log on to your PC at 8 o'clock in the night after dinner. No, it's far more than that. There are so many committed drivers, committed organizations working extremely hard to make sure that this is a big revenue stream for them. So many big teams come to mind in this case, and it's just amazing to see the kind of growth that this industry has seen, and honestly will continue to see in the coming years as more and more people get attracted towards esports. But also, Arjuna, coming back to this particular weekend and the qualifying format, it reminds me a lot of MotoGP, isn't it? Because where we have free practice 3 or 4, that is, I beg your pardon, and the top qualifiers from all the first free practice sessions, their aggregate lap times allows them basically to enter Q2 directly. So it makes sure that even your qualifying sessions, your practice sessions, are representative, so that you don't take them lightly, you go out there and do race runs. That's the intention with the IVRA warm-ups, and that's exactly why the drivers are consistently doing race runs in the pre-practice sessions. And if you nail it, you get a straight ticket into Q2. But the interesting thing is, it's a bit strange, this one, isn't it? Once you get into Q2, it's not just your Q2 lap time that determines where you start. It's the better one of your qualifying 1 and qualifying 2 lap time that determines where your grid starting position is amongst the Q2 qualifiers. I hope I haven't made it too confusing, but it is what it is, I guess.
Well, I think the important point to say is that it's an not aggregate, overall lap time competition. We should point out, take a look at the track conditions. This almost 6 kilometer in length track. Didn't realize it was that long, but I guess you do run almost the entire length of the NASCAR banking. can see they're fairly cool in terms of track conditions though, so that's not going to be such a factor. Hopefully track evolution will mean that Q2 is slightly quicker and cars starting to roll off the lane. So there you can see we're gonna have 15 cars out on track. And Daytona, usually a place where drafting in qualifying is so important. I'm not sure with just 15 cars, Sommel, if drafting is going to be as important as it has been in the past, because yes, you can get that draft benefit, but we saw this yesterday in the BMW Sim Live as well. Sebastian Job, he didn't need no draft. He just went out there out front, put in some very clean lap times, and he didn't get the pole, but he was close enough that maybe wondering at this point in time if it's worth the risk to try something different.
It is indeed. I mean, the draft can be huge around Daytona, considering just the vast amount of long straights that we have around here. But the thing is, when prize money is involved and when a championship like this one is so hotly contested, you're not going to do any favors to any rival. You're not going to trust them because, oh, they might say, give us a draft and in the next run we might give you the draft as well. But track evolution could play a huge role. Maybe in your run you could end up facing some traffic. Maybe they don't give you the draft at all. So do you want to trust your rival in a situation like that? And it may sound very sad to say it this way because, of course, you want to see some sort of respect between all the teams. You want to see them be nice and friendly, but honestly, the competition is just so intense. It's just so great. And that's what produces all the good racing that we see here. So I guess situations like this one, when teams do not give each other a draft, are just a byproduct of this kind of intense competition that we have, which also gives us some incredible racing in the races. So I guess we've got to accept it and move on and see what happens in the main races. But here we are then. MAG Performance are using a bit of draft right now.
So down in towards turn number 1, try and break as much of a straight line as you can, sweep it down to the inside of the corner. The MAG Performance car getting a nice draft from Leipert Esports as they work in towards the International Horseshoe. Will ride on board for a lap with the 14, turning in a bit early there for the International Horseshoe. You can sometimes square the corner off a little bit more, turn in late, get down to the apex of the corner more aggressively and stamp on the power. This little kink sometimes feels like a very scary corner in the limited downforce you have in the GT3 cars, but once again, setting out for braking on the outside of the corner. This corner has about 1,000 different lines that you can take. We'll see that in the race itself, but one of the more important corners coming up here, the exit back on to the banking. You rejoin NASCAR's 1 and 2. Michael Schlax has actually managed to close up onto the back of the Leipert Esports car just a little bit. Lucas Caper in the Leipert Esports number 10 car, just going to head up to the high side, let the 14 through, and Michael Schlax now looks at clean air as he works down into the bus stop. And Sommel, this is such a fun corner to try and get right in the race.
It's just one corner or 4? I think we'll go for one corner, but man, this is so much fun. You've got to stick your car towards the right, not all the way at the wall with the GT3 cars because they can't turn in so aggressively. So you just have to keep it somewhere 3/4 the way in. And then just the way you commit to the first apex, it is mind-blowing. But if you overcommit, you carry too much speed and you can't turn your car back in for the second corner, the right-hander, and then back into the left one. I think, honestly, it has to be my favorite chicane on the entire iRacing service. It's just so fun to take. It's almost therapeutic if you get it correct. And you just feel a warm breath of freshness once you get it right. I love this particular corner. Well, sometimes during the races it can go wrong. Just ask Elio Castroneves about that in an LMP2 car. But honestly, if you nail it, it feels so satisfying. But that's the fun part. It's easy to take it through correctly, but it's very hard to take it the proper way around and make it as fast as you possibly can. That's the thing with all the corners at Daytona. You can take them properly. It's easy not to make any mistakes, but to take them the fastest way around takes some practice, to be honest.
Well, someone who's clearly got a lot of practice. Team Oisingveld, Max Riedmuller in the number 78. First lap time on the board for him was the fastest, 1:44.064. And of course, they advanced directly into Q2 through the warm-up session, so they weren't on the track for the first 15 minutes. A bit of a train of cars just forming up behind them. We jumped to a wonderful shot of cars in the pit lane. And now pick up one of the RSR by G performance cars. And this is the number 55. The number 56, if you're curious, is out on track as well, right behind. I was just trying to find it. But
you scared me for a second.
I got scared for a second as well there, Saul, because here we are. We're talking now about, you know, championship contenders. The number 55 is the one in the championship lead, but that number 56, it's only 100 points behind, and we've seen very impressive runnings here from these RSR BMW. So, I mean, clearly there's a bit of team gamesmanship going on right now. One driver giving the draft to the other, but I mean, 10 minutes to go in quali, they're just working their way up, I think, towards their fastest qualifying laps.
They are. And RSR Esports by G Performance traditionally have had quite a good run in their qualifying sessions because both their cars have had very, very good race number ones. So we take a look at this replay over here. NJB Performance running slightly wide at turn number 1, I suppose that would be, missing their braking point and just trying to cut a bit of the grass, I guess, helping out the Daytona track officials with that one. Again, losing their marker, carrying too much speed, and with the Audi, that can be quite an easy thing to do, I'll be honest. But as they rejoin, coming back to the point about RSR Esports, they've had very, very good race number ones, both their cars. They've been extremely good in qualifying. They've been very good in terms of managing the pace and defending from up above. But it's just been so chaotic in race number 2 that this 56 machine has not been as good as the car that we're seeing right now, the number 55 that leads the championship. And the RSR 56, along with the Pro Driver number 58 car and the Lapsat 235, all of them have been very good in race 1, but it's just a frantic nature of race number 2 that they've not been able to make up as many positions as they would like to. And it's credit to quite a few teams, like the CXR car that we saw last time out, like Altitude Esports, that are defending so frantically and not allowing the seemingly faster cars to make their way up in race number 2. That's what makes for some epic racing. But as we speak about that, both the RSR cars seem to be using the draft to their advantage, Arjuna, so team play is seeming to be quite a big factor here.
Yeah, these BMWs are pretty strong in a straight line as well, so shouldn't need too much help, but clearly number 55 towing along the number 56. The 56 all the way down in 24th as things stand, so maybe the 56 helped the 55 the first lap around, and now the 55 team returning the favor across the line. They're about to go then to what is apparently turn number 12 according to Race Control's map of the track. But there we go, the number 56 to the point, 0.3 of a second faster than Max Riedmuller in the Team Hoistingfeld number 78 as well. Well, I mean, so there we go. There is, we were wondering how strong the draft is. We just found out 0.3 of a second. And now a few more opportunities, I think, for this team to swap around, maybe let the 55 have a go at it now, cool the tires off, and have one more go at it.
It's a bit amazing, isn't it? The BMW Z4 already with its immense straight line advantage, and then you go ahead and use the draft. It's like taking Brock Lesnar and adding an extra 10 points of agility. He doesn't need it, but it certainly makes him overpowered. That's what's happening with the BMW. RSR Esports by G Performance working the draft out. And now look at it in this particular lap. The second car, the number 55, they're going to be warming up their tires, sitting behind, waiting patiently. They'll be dropping back a little bit after the bus stop chicane and then slamming on the throttle, using the draft all the way through. And both of them could eventually have some excellent, who knows, maybe even top 2 lap times in this case. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
It will be. I've just noticed something, by the way. Someone has, new to the series and might have just got themselves caught out by one of the unique rules to IVRA competition. The Leipert Esport team that is competing in IVRA GT Sprint competition for the first time. We have seen the Leipert Esport team in the IVRA Club Sport Series, but they've just headed back out onto the track after coming down the pit lane. So, Lucas Caper is going to have some explaining to do, I think. We'll wait and see what happens there. 5 minutes left in qualifying. We wait for our qualifying graphics to unbreak themselves, maybe for the 55 to set a blistering lap time, as he now tries to use the draft of his teammate down in towards the International Horseshoe. 5 minutes left on the clock. interesting to note here, Sommel, we've only got about 28, 29 cars registered for this race. However, for the first time, I feel like the delta between the teams is larger than ever. 14 cars separated by just over a second right now, but the top 26 separated by 2 seconds. This might be a very interesting second race, especially with the reverse grid and the draft.
Yeah, it's gonna be a bit wild. It seems like the top drivers have quite a bit of an edge, and Daytona being Daytona, it'll offer you so many opportunities to make a move. But we've seen time and again in quite a few IMSA races as well in the real world, which I think is a very good, let's say, real world counterpart of IVRA. Defending can be done here. You can be very resilient. You can block people off even though you are slower than them. It just takes a huge amount of commitment from your end and just an undying spirit of not letting go. So it will take some effort, certainly doable for sure, but I think towards the end we could see some chaos. I hope it's not like Donington, I'll be very honest, because that got out of hand very, very quickly. But race number 2 right here, I think it should be a lot of fun. But now, Anthony Pisano, let's take a keen look rather, on how much of an advantage he's going to get with the draft. His teammate put it on pole provisionally.
Ooh,
he's going to go better.
He's hitting the rev limiter. He was hitting the rev limiter there. 144.259 for Pisano, which gets corrected to a 258. But he was hitting the rev limiter. He does improve, so that is now his best lap time. Doesn't move him up the board. He goes up just one position. He'll have one more opportunity, it looks like. Sends it deep into the International Horseshoe. That's that late cutback I'm talking about, where you can get onto the power very aggressively. Getting a nice little toe through the infield section as well. But, Sommel, you wouldn't have heard it because of the way we do our production back here, but he was hitting the rev limiter. That is not a good sign if you're hitting the rev limiter behind one car, let alone the swarm of cars you might have in front of you in some of our races.
Yeah, I've experienced that myself firsthand while driving this particular car right here at Daytona. And it's such a sad feeling because then you see your top speed limited and it's just a certain surge of expectations and hope go all the way through. When you exit the final corner, you see the speed limiter climbing, 200, 210, 220, 260, 270, 300, 320. And then you hit the ref limiter and it does not climb and you can see your lap time crumbling away right in front of your eyes and you feel, oh goodness me, all the hard work, all the effort, and I do not gain any time at all. And so, you've got to do it like them and go ahead for another lap time. Have they got it better this time out than number 55?
We'll wait and see. Only 3 cars left on the track. The 2 RSR teammates that we have up on your screen. The Archer Brother Esports Audi, about 1 or 2 seconds down the road from these guys. So 3 cars, 2 minutes left in our qualifying session. Across the line again for the RSR team, really getting up close to that rear wing in the draft. This time around for Pisano, 144.280 doesn't improve. I think that is going to be it then, at least for his qualifying attempts. Archer Brother Esports doing a bit of pit entry practice. And, well, Sommel, that's something that we should talk about as well. We've got a mandatory driver change in both of our races. And pit stops here is always an interesting experience, especially the entry onto the pit lane. The exit is a journey in and of itself. We don't have the much slower journey that the IMSA cars now have to deal with the new tire scanners that now scan the side of the tires. But the braking down onto pit road speed here is so important, and you can lose seconds if you brake slightly early. So I think we are going to see all the teams pushing their luck as much as possible, and we might see a bit more practice being put in here by the RSR team in just a few moments' time.
Indeed, and being an oval course before a road course, that pit entry is rather sharp. So you've got to make up your mind very, very early. And that's correct, Arjuna. The entry of it is so critical. I mean, if you break a couple of seconds later, you could easily end up losing so much of time. And it's such an amazing thing, isn't it? The kind of time that you would take 10, 15, 20 laps to claw in on the racetrack can be lost in 2 or 3 seconds in the pit lane. It's baffling the way it works. But that is what it is. You've got to make your way through and even practice that. But with IVRA, I remember Silverstone just saw a galore of penalties go all the way through because the drivers were spending far too little time on the fast lane. Now, IVRA tries to replicate it much like the real world. And look at this, the RSR car just braking in time. You've got to spend as much time as you possibly can on the fast lane towards the right. Because, of course, in the real world, you wouldn't be spending your time near the pit boxes, because if you do that, you would probably obliterate a few people, send them to the hospital, and not even pay the bill for that. You've got to turn in at the right time, and if you don't, there's a hefty penalty coming your way in IVRA competition.
And that's something that's been a big storyline across the 4 series that IVRA competition has, and we at RaceSpot get to broadcast. 4 series. We have today the IVRA GT Sprint Series. Then we also have the IVRA Club Sport Series, which has its own support series. The IVRA Club Cup, with the Mazda MX-5 Cup cars proving as a great supporting act for endurance racing action. We can't forget as well what effectively started this entire organization, the IVRA Endurance Series, that has been around in one form or another since about 2012, if you can believe it.
Goodness.
So there is a lot of history in this brand new organization. IVRA itself only forming this past summer. We got to be a part of the first ever competition, the IVRA Club Sport Summer Series, in support of UNICEF and COVID-19. Qualifying is over now, though. All the cars back on the pit lane, getting ready to head out for our race. And we just wait to show you the starting grid as Barney, the flagman, vigorously waves that flag. I don't know. I think at some point we do need to try it, and some will get our very own Aaron Lycan scanned into the iRacing service, because that, I think, would be something special to have a real flagman represented in the iRacing service.
Question is, will Aaron wave the flag with such intensity? If he does, I'm all in for it. Let's not take away the intensity of the flag waving right there, because it's such a highlight, isn't it? Seeing Barney the flagman. In fact, I remember, wasn't that NASCAR who posted a video of the flagman waving, and then we saw one of the real flagmen in one of the early NASCAR races after the pandemic waving it with such vigor. I was smiling ear to ear with that.
We did indeed. So, get a great shot right now. Some of the other activities that you can do at Daytona. You see the infield section. We got the wonderful Ferris wheel, where you can get a great view of the fireworks that take place during the night, during the Daytona 24-hour race. But just a few moments away then from cars getting ready to grid up. So let's get ready to walk you through our starting grid for today's race number 1. And so for the RSR Esport by G Performance team, Boris Avando gonna line up on the pole position with a 1:43.759. Aided by his teammate, he takes the pole position by more than 0.3 of a second from last time's out race 1 winner Team Hoisingveld in the 78, and Max Riedmuller. Row number 2 and Race Esport in the number 199, and CXR Project Black in their venerable Ford GT. Row 3, the Mag Performance Sim Racing team. Lining up next to them, the second of our RSR Esport by G Performance cars, the number 55 championship leader. The Team Hoisingveld number 48 in 7th place with Pro Driver Esports and Felipe Valentin on the outside of row number 4. Edge of the top 10, Lipid Esports making their debut in the GT Sprint Series, qualifying 9th, with the Apex Missers not missing too many Apexes to be on the edge of the top 10. Archer Brother Esports then in the 202, they'll line up in 11th with HM Engineering in 12th. The number 733 NJB Performance car lines up on the inside of row 7 with the Mayer SimSpeed Performance number 73 on their outside. Altitude Esports in the number 23 lines up in 15th place with last week's race 2 winner Ashley Beard in the number 111 Altitude Esports car lines up all the way back in 16th. The Quasar Sim Racing team and Garrett Thompson in 17th. Team Vikings in the 777 in 18th. Team Oblivion Racing in 19th. And the Roaring Chicken Nuggets looking for a 20-piece of nuggets in 20th. Xanity Motorsports in 21st. The Lapset Racing team in 22nd. Next Level Racing 23rd. .exe Esports in 24th. The Awesome Motorsports Group in 25th. A second Quasar Sim Racing team in 26th. Shipsky Racing in their 222 in 27th. Another one of our laps at racing teams cars, the number 17, all the way back in 28th position. And then our final driver, Vincent Lemarchand in the Pro Driver Esports number 58. Going to line up in 29th position. Cars starting to roll. And, well, Sommel, coming down into turn number 1 in any race, especially at Daytona, is always interesting. But in these GT3 machines, with the start zone being so crucial, it's going to be important that we get a very clean start here.
It's going to be absolutely insane seeing how things should work out around here. Turn number 1 has produced so many dramatic moments over the years. Braking for it can be absolutely critical. And trust me, very, very hard indeed as you brake and turn together. The start zone is going to be critical. Unlike Donington, the leader does not get to choose when to go. There's a designated start zone right before the tri-oval where they have to get going. Should be a fun one, Arjun. At turn 1, let's hope it's clean. Let's hope the racing is incredible.
Well, they do get a bit... Oh, there was a bit of a check-up there. Garrett Thompson in the Quasar car, in that Ferrari, getting involved, but Field in control of the leader then. We're into the start zone. Evando in control, and there's contact. The CXR Ford. Oh, and there's a Ferrari into the wall now. Chaos on the start. The number 48 Hoisenfeld car 3 wide on the inside as they work down into turn number 1. We'll have to grab some replays as we work through the start. I think it was the HM Engineering Ferrari that has ended up in the wall, but somehow everyone else cleanly through turn number 1, and we work in towards turn number 2. Car off into the grass. That's Manuel Mayer in the Mayer Sim Speed Performance Audi. Oh, is he going to be able to save that? Just about manages to keep that under control. Oh, Sommel, we just got extremely lucky there.
It could have been so much worse, and I was literally biting my nails in the start when I saw everyone checking up. I thought, oh my goodness me, here we go again. But thank goodness, all the pieces of bodywork are intact. But the Shipsky racing car, for the second time in a row, having quite a bad start here in race number 1. They're taking a detour in the grass. Have they just broken their suspension?
But while they're struggling at the back, out front, Boris Evando tries to run away with the lead of this race. Draft going to be such an important factor here. And he's already built up a 7/10 of a second advantage. You see N-Race Esport, they've lost out on the start very slightly. Drop down into 4th position, side by side further back. That's Archer Brother Esports looking to the inside of the Lightport Esports Audi. Not able to get the move done, but driver's already starting to lose out here. 4 seconds behind the race leader already is the car in 10th place. Ashley Beard having a nice scrap with the Team Oblivion Racing number 64 Audi as more cars off the track. This time the number 72 having issues. This is just on the exit of the bus stop. We'll take a look at all of these replays in a few moments time as you see number 72 continuing to struggle. But meanwhile, Sommel, we dive down into turn number 1 and the gap out front really close.
Yes, indeed. HM Engineering, not HM Engineering, I beg your pardon. It's Team Hersingville who are closing right up on the RSR by G Performance car. They just had a look at turn number 1, but couldn't quite get something there. But crucially, they got their exit extremely correct at the exit of the International Horseshoe. But meanwhile, what's going on back there between the BMW Z4? That is Michael Schlacks attacking for P number 5. They're getting all so close. Paul Searle has made a couple of positions right at the start of this very lap. So the Ford GT making moves. And that BMW right there, it's under some tremendous pressure. The Audi's already looking racy. The N-Race car, that is, having to defend big time.
I tell you what, let's try and take a look as they work back onto the banking now for the second time. Let's try and take a look at what happened on this start. I'm almost 100% sure it involves HM Engineering. There you can see the 73 in HM Engineering. So the 73 has got damage before we even get to the start-finish line for the first time. Down in towards turn number 1. We'll keep watching this here. Watch what happens to the number 73 Sommel because disaster for them.
Yeah, that's the nature of these starts, where everyone gets so close to each other. And that's just Daytona for you. That's just turn 1 for you in a sprint race. It gets so tricky. Look at this one. Mayer Sim Speed have also just come back from this one. And then the Audi comes up from the inside, and that's when everything seems to be looking clean. But they have a big damaged front bumper. Let's take a look at this replay of the start once again. Concertina effect, as always. Boom. Off they go. That's their front bumper damage. That's a lot of straight line speed lost all throughout the race. But was that a Team Heusinkveld car that I saw losing out at the top of the frame because they got a bad start right there?
So I think the 48 actually slightly jumped compared to some of the cars around him. So he had to back off slightly. He didn't want to be on the inside, 3 wide into turn 1. We jump back to the live pictures. Top 2 have broken away very slightly here. Max Riedmuller putting pressure onto Ovando, but gap behind, 1.7 seconds. CXR Project Black do have a slight bit of damage to now contend with after that early race contact. And, well, the Ford doing a good job to hold on at the moment. N-Race Esport BMW not having the best of luck either as things stand. Shipsky Racing, unfortunately, you talked about the issues they had on the start. It looks like, according to my timing screen, they're having more issues right now. Rachel Williams jumping into the car for the first time, but that BMW back up to racing speed now. Does appear as though all 29 cars still out there on the track.
As we mentioned, of course, could have been far, far worse. Thank goodness they're all racing as they are, but this battle for P1, that's what's getting me really intrigued. And this is the perfect camera, Arjuna. We're getting a good long-term view, a long-standing view, in fact, of the battle at turn number 1. Here goes Team Heusinkveld to the outside line. This could be their chance. The BMW has the straight line advantage, mind you, but Team Heusinkveld do not lack in heart in any way whatsoever. Past the inside. Cycle back up. They're just... It's interesting, isn't it? Proper gamesmanship. They're putting their nose in the right places. They're making sure that RSR by G Performance know that they're there, but they're planning the move for just the right time. And if one RSR versus Heusinkveld battle wasn't enough, we've got 2 of them.
And the number 48 has just worked up into 6th place, and they go side by side through the International Horseshoe again. The run off the outside of the corner for the 48 is going to win out here. You can go side by side through this kink. The car on the outside just chops off the nose of the Team Heusinkveld machine. That was great racing there as the Team Heusinkveld machine loses out for a second. The Xanity Motorsport BMW, by the way, has had an issue. We'll take a look at the replay here very quickly. This is working down through turns 1 and 2. This is with the Laps at Racing team car as well. Ooh, that's just 2 going into 1. Never going to work out. And the lightest of touches, as it were. Back to the live pictures then, because this battle out front is really, really interesting. You've got the grunt of the BMW down the straights, the Audi getting the toe down these straights, but then the Audi is clearly the better car through the corners at this point in time. But fuel economy is always a question here, Sommel. We're not expecting strategy in terms of fuel when the drivers come down the lane, but if you're able to just do something slightly different, maybe avoid the traffic by coming down 1 lap later than your competition, that difference could be crucial in winning you the race.
The Audi usually is quite good in terms of fuel saving. It can go quite a bit of the distance, and Daytona being Daytona, if you're in the draft window, you can afford to save your fuel by going quarter throttle or something, but it's just the heat of the battle if you're Team Heusinkveld right now. You're just so close to RSR by G Performance, and track position is so important that would you really want to save fuel? So the leaders are essentially bound up by that competition because they're so close to each other, because they're fighting so hard against each other. They're pretty compelled not to do any fuel saving because quite simply they can't. But what's going on here?
Well, that was Liam Matthews in the Archer Brothers car making contact with the Leipert Esports car. I saw they were close on the track. This is coming down into the International Horseshoe. Not sure what happens here. Through the corner for the number 202. Just loses the rear end. Oh, nowhere really for the Leipert Esports machine to go there, Sommel. And, well, light contact. And now that Archer Brothers machine all the way down in 23rd place.
Yeah, competition getting the best of drivers in this particular case. Leipert Esports, I'm afraid, never was a move in the very first place. But because the other car lost their line, Leipert Esports had no other choice. They just were there at the wrong place at the wrong time and ended up with slightly damaged bodywork. Seem to be doing all right though, but the Apex Missers, who had a rather torrid weekend in Donington, are hitting their apexes right now, and that's why they're closing up to the NJB performance car. Nils Borkash had a bit of a trouble qualifying, missing his braking point at turn number 1 early on, but now he's involved and locked in this rather fun battle for the very edge of the top 10 position. The BMW with its advantage going up high. The spotter will be telling him, car to the left. Will he make the move at turn 1?
And the NJB Audi getting a nice tow along from Leipert Esports, so side by side the Audis go. Doesn't leave much space for the Apex Missers, who will just slot into line. Watch the NJB car poke to the outside. Wow. Deep braking there as they go side by side behind as well. NJB doesn't get the move done. The Pro Driver Audi as well tries to sneak up on the action. And take a look at this shot right here. Look at that swarm of cars. There's about 7 cars right now fighting for about 8th on back. That's a great shot of a very angry train of cars right now. Leipert Esports out front, all the way back to the 111, and Ultra G Esports and Ashley Beard at the tail. Last time out, they won race number 2 with some fantastic defensive driving. This time around, a bit more offense is required.
You say MotoGP riders going past the chicane is very satisfying, but just take a look at this train of cars taking every single corner one after the other. What? Almost in perfect synchrony, in perfect harmony, I beg your pardon. Now that is satisfying. They've got to be in the draft, and you kind of get a feeling that each of them will be having a bit of an advantage if they can just go to quarter throttle and save a bit of fuel, and then, as Arjuna, you mentioned, perhaps go a lap longer and avoid all the drama that could happen right there. But move being made, Apex Misses going down the inside, and thankfully getting it sealed in before turn number 1. It's a beautiful pendulum effect midway through the corner, and the Audi just did not get it right, and they have lost their ground.
Ross Nicholson in the second of our Ultra G Esports car, the number 23, takes advantage through the bus stop then, but the Pro Driver Audi going to have a move back out front in this group as well. Apex Missers looking to the outside as they're about to go 3 wide across the start-finish stripe. The Quasar Sim Racing Audi, Ferrari on the outside doesn't get it done. Apex Missers, by the way, have already gotten past Leipert Esports. That BMW is so strong in a straight line. Oh, they're still fighting through turn 2. Just having to slot back in is the Quasar Sim Racing Ferrari. Garrett Thompson trying to get the move done. Pokes his nose to the inside through the horseshoe. Very nicely onto the power now, but around the outside, good momentum for the Audi. This is a really interesting pack that is developing here. You've got 7 cars, 7 different lines, it seems, that are being taken through all of the different corners, Samuel. Just take a look at this. This is for 12th, 13th, and 14th. You would not believe this type of action.
It's incredible, isn't it? And if there's one thing I've learned personally from racing and iRacing myself, I'll complete that point after we see this battle between the 64 and the 111 going on. Team Oblivion Racing doing a good job to defend right there as we go past the banking. The one thing I've learned is that it's just so amazing, even if you're in the lower positions. No battle is small. Everyone matters a lot as we see the Ferrari looking for something. Awesome stuff.
They almost just ducked below those double yellow lines, which is obviously a big no-no. Ferrari still looks to the outside. Team Oblivion holds them off. Ferrari actually gets a fairly horrible run through the bus stop. That's going to open the door for the Team Vikings 777 potentially to come through the rear. Let's jump back out front though, because side by side across the start-finish line, Team Hoisingveld looks to the outside. They're going to try the over-under here. The BMW able to grip on the inside of the corner though, doesn't leave the room, and still 1 and 2 RSR and Team Hoisingveld. This is a great battle out front. And they're now about 2 and a bit seconds clear from the 383. So the pace between these 2 cars clearly significant. And oh no! That's Matt Loveridge pointing the wrong direction in turn number 1. We just saw Team Oblivion Racing involved in that battle. I'll take a look at the replay here, but I have a feeling there's going to be a bit of contact down into 1 potentially. Although, here we see on the replay, not much action around him.
Well, you never know.
Well, I think, judging right now, it's going to be a self-spin. Loses the rear, and indeed, yes, he does. Is he going to get collected? Fortunately, he goes off into that little bit of an access road there. That helps him out quite nicely. There was another issue to take a look at, by the way. This is down into the bus stop for the Lapset Racing Team number 11. And they just get turned from the rear. There's not much that you can say about that other than, well, they just got turned there, Sommel.
Lapsat Racing have had some torrid luck, the number 11 car. just got punted from behind, and Ferraris, well, spinning. That's happened quite a bit on international global racing broadcasting, and it's a bit sad, isn't it? Because their teammates, the number, that is the 235 Lapsat Racing team, have had an epic season so far, and the number 11 just almost always gets caught up in incidents like this one. Let's hope better luck for everyone, including them right now. But look at this one, Hursinghwell getting close. Cutting off the track right there, going past the white line. That may just be one penalty point, I'm not sure. But they're getting too close right now. This battle at the sunset is just picture-perfect racing that you imagine. Daytona at sunset in an amazing Audi racing against the BMW, multi-class GT3 racing. And it's a classic cliche commentator thing, but I'm going to say it. Different philosophies of different race cars. The BMW front engine, the Audi mid-engine, of course. Both rear-wheel drive, the BMW having a clear straight-line advantage, the Audi being wild in the corners. It just builds up for such an immense battle, and that is exactly what we've been seeing for the last 15 minutes.
We jump on board then with Reed Muller through the very important corner that takes you back onto the oval. You see the BMW a bit tighter this time around. And now it's all about just hugging that yellow line, minimizing the distance around the corner, and trying to use as much of that draft as possible. Let's ride on board through the bus stop chicane with the number 78 then. Braking at that yellow marker on the right-hand side of the track. Sweep down to the inside, use the curb on the left, use the curb on the right, use the curb on the right, then use the curb on the left once again, and oh, the apex speed through that corner, especially in the GT3 machines with limited downforce, is such an immense feeling, and the YouTube chat has been enjoying the speculation about the future of GT3 racing in the iRacing service. We mentioned the BMW M4 GT3 that was recently announced, coming in a early access form to the iRacing service in just a matter of weeks. There are rumors circulating around a number of other GT3 machines. We're not going to mention them by name because they haven't been confirmed just yet, Sommel. So we're not going to play into the rampant speculation, as it were. But, I mean, as you see, by the way, NJB Performance has just managed to get past Leipzig Esports. The Altitude Esports Ferrari tries to do the same. Oh, Leipzig Esports just manages to hold on. So some good fighting further back in your field, as now Pro Driver Esports looks to the inside as well. But getting back to the point here, Sommel. GT3 for so long has been a class in iRacing that, for some reason or another, certain portions of the community have felt like it was being ignored. No more, I don't think you can claim that anymore, as Altitude Esports late under braking peeks their nose to the inside. Side by side they're going to go. This is going to open the door for the Pro Driver Esports Audi potentially. Looks to try and get the move done, doesn't force it, doesn't commit, so still 10th, 11th, 12th they run. But let's get to the point at hand here, Sobel. GT3 machineries haven't been the most, the class with the most popularity in iRacing recently. However, with all of these improvements that are coming, a number of changes still in the works for some of the existing cars, this GT3 class is really exciting, and like some of our chat is saying, it's a class that's going to be changing a lot throughout the course of 2021.
100% Arjuna. I'll just come back to the point as we see Felipe Valentin in the Pro Driver Esports black car tracking Altitude Esports, the Audi going to the outside line, top line, and realizing that perhaps staying back in the draft would be a better idea. But yeah, absolutely, GT3 is changing for the better. Pro Driver attacks once again, looking for something to the inside. The Ferrari goes side by side there with Leipzig Esports. They've turned calamity into opportunity and have got the move done themselves. That is incredibly smart. And Leipzig are going to be double down, are they, in this case? No, not quite. Pro Driver just missing their mark. But coming back to the whole talk about GT3, and yes, it was true because we didn't really have a lot of GT3 cars coming in after the whole GT3 revamp back in 2016 with the new Mercedes, the new Ferrari, and all the other cars coming in through. But now the winds of change are blowing. We are seeing more tension, more focus towards it. And there were quite a few members of the iRacing community quite vocal on Twitter and other platforms saying that, oh, being a GT3 driver now is just a crime. Everyone wants to drive for Porsche cars and all the teams are looking for those sort of drivers. But no, with manufacturers committing over there. And with another manufacturer starting with L and ending with an I, also potentially having their car come in, with more GT3 spec tracks coming in as well, I think it's just good news, and more drivers could be driving GT3 cars now. It just builds up very well for the community. But now let's focus on this battle in hand, Arjun. And the one thing I seem to have noticed about Max Friedmuller is that it just has an advantage on the entry to the corner. So the Audi is able to brake far later, get closer to the BMW, but never quite able to open the door and put his foot through it. Maybe it's just a case of them controlling. Here they go.
Yeah, the Audi just doesn't get enough of a draft coming down across the start-finish line. He needs to try and wait, but Ovando continues to just hold the inside. 20 minutes done in 60 minutes of racing. Around the outside, Riedmuller tries to hang the car, but the tail just starts to come around very slightly. He has to get on the brakes through the middle of the corner. Ovando holds on for now. Riedmuller clearly has pace. The question is, does he have enough pace to get out in front and then hold on to that position? I'm unclear at this point in time, but just a few minutes until the pit window opens. Maximum drive time for all drivers in this series is 35 minutes. So, we will expect driver swaps to happen in just not 5 minutes time, because the way it works in IVRA competition is they actually calculate your actual drive time based on laps completed and average lap times. So you can't rely on just coming in exactly when the clock strikes 35 minutes to go. I mean, the open pit window closer to about 27 to 33 minutes as... oh no, that's the Roaring Chicken Nuggets that has had an issue. Looks like through the International Horseshoe they've dropped a few positions already. Robin De Becker behind the wheel right now. This is coming through the kink up towards the second of our hairpins, actually. Is there going to be contact with the pro driver BMW down the inside? Yes, there is. And unfortunately for the Roaring Chicken Nuggets, their quest for chicken nuggets will have to go on just slightly longer.
Fried. The race has just been fried in a second. Oh, here we go.
And here we go again then as the Roaring Chicken Nuggets, their race goes up in flames. Team Hoisingveld looks to the outside again. He really needs to try and do an over-under, I think, down into turn number 1. Ovando continues to hold the inside. Riedmuller sweeps around with more momentum through turn 1. Turn number 2, side by side they go. Ovando just marginally in front. Able to sweep across and hold on into turn number 3. He has to go defensive under braking, though. That compromises the exit. Riedmuller tries to get the power down, not able to straighten the car in time. This is a fascinating battle out front now, Samo, because it's a battle where it's clear that the straight line performance of that BMW is going to be one of the hardest things that Riedmuller is going to have to overcome.
Exactly, but for how long will Riedmuller be in the car? The pit window will be opening very, very soon as he gets back onto the diffuser of the BMW, which he seems to be doing in every hard braking zone. He's always getting close, but you've got to give credit to Boris Angel Ovando in this case from the RSR YG Performance team. He's just defending extremely well. He knows the strengths of his car and he's utilizing it extremely well, just blocking off every single inch of tarmac when the hard braking zone comes in. Look at this one. The Audi will be coming in, gets closer, past the first apex. Oh no, they didn't get a very good one this time, did they? So, just as I spoke about them having an advantage on the entry, they did somewhat mess it up, but nevertheless they are going to get closer. But yeah, Boris Angel Ovando has been doing an extremely good job of defending, and this will pass on to the second drivers in each of their cars. So this battle will go on for a long time. You can see the sun in their eyes. Team Hoisingveld, what, round 20, 30 in this race? Are they going to go for a move this time out? Of course they are.
And while we're racing into the sunset, this time our reverse grid race will be under the lights. I wonder if a bit of fuel saving being done by Riedmuller potentially, maybe just open up the possibilities for the second stint for his teammate, as he tries to continue to make the move happen. Let's jump back to that battle pack that we've been checking in on every once in a while. The Leipzig Esports Audi either has damage or is running a little bit too much wing, I think, based on the way that they are getting swarmed down the straight. Newcomers to the IVRA GT Sprint Series, they were slightly involved in the checkup that we saw on the start. However, I mean, you can see there, the car is relatively clean. They have been dropping like a fly. One thing we didn't mention, by the way, Samuel, we talked about some of the new cars coming to the iRacing service. Why haven't we mentioned some of the new tracks as well? Red Bull Ring, the Hungara Ring, Knock Hill, Rockingham. I forget which 4 tracks were just confirmed, but we've got a whole host of new European tracks that are coming and signaling the start of a new wave of content that I think a lot of these European road fans who sometimes look at the NASCAR side of things and a bit of jealousy are going to be very excited about.
Yeah, so there's the Hockenheim Ring, there's the Red Bull Ring, there is Knock Hill, and of course the Hungara Ring, the last one of which I'd absolutely detest. But here comes Team Hersing. Well, once again, don't tell me we haven't seen this before, because we absolutely have to. The outside they go with some commitment, but that commitment, well, it's just not paying off dividends in this case, because Boris Angelo Vando is just saying, oh, Max, you keep on trying. I'm not going to let you go. You know the answer. Why do you even try? But of course, Max Friedmuller has to keep on doing it, because who knows, somewhere down the line, once you keep on knocking on the door, once you consistently keep on putting those strikes in, that one big strike comes in and the driver up ahead of you makes a mistake. Meanwhile, in the midfield, the battles never quite end. Altitude Esports going wheel to wheel past the chicane. It's a lovely section this, and they've got the move done at the 3rd corner. So, moves being made all the way through the track, Arjuna. And indeed, it's amazing to see new road courses come in, new European road courses. I would love to see more Asian tracks being scanned, of course, but it just shows that iRacing is not just committed for ovals, but also for these sort of races. And we thought a couple of months ago that GT3s were being neglected.
So, lots of stuff to get excited about then. Altitude Esports managing to hold on to 14th place. Team Vikings now battling with the Pro Driver Esports BMW. I believe that's the BMW that rather horrifically jumped the start last time around at Donington. Someone mentioned the start zone issues that we had last time. We had more issues this time. We'll see if race 2 is a bit cleaner. Back to the race lead coming out of NASCAR 4. Reed Muller has managed to pull alongside, but now out of the draft, the grunt of the BMW is going to start edging him ahead. Avando leads this lap once again, so Reed Miller's not going to be able to get the last lap dash to the line done just yet, but around the outside, a bit more momentum, almost loses the car that time. But there are signs that the outside line is starting to become more of an option, and pit lane is now open as the NJB Performance car dives onto the lane. They are the first to blink. And they'll be the first to do a driver change. No one has jumped down with them just yet with 33 minutes left on the clock, so potentially expecting the first of the major pit laps, as it were, to open this time around. Is Reed Miller going to follow Ovando down, or Sawmill? Do we think that Reed Miller is going to just do the opposite to what Ovando does in front of him?
I think he will have to, because Max Friedmuller, he's been sitting behind and looking at the RSR Esports car's diffuser. He must be thinking, how much more have I got to do? What else have I got to do to make my way up? And when you ask that question, there is one clear answer: opposite strategy. So Max Friedmuller could very well go and do something different, which we have seen Team Hersing will do quite a bit in other championships as well. So this could be interesting. The gap, of course, is building up, so he'll want to be making sure that he's as close as possible before he either goes for the undercut or goes for the overcut, because staying as they will just transfer and spill on this battle towards the other 2 drivers coming in each of these cars, and it will just put things back on the level pegging field as it already is right now. So HM Engineering clearly have to roll the dice. Is it going to be worth it though? That's the question we're going to be answering in the next half an hour.
So here we go then. Not as close into turn 1, neither of them down onto the lane. Hoisingveld going to poke their nose to the outside, not going to try and send it this time around, tucked back into line. Are they going to try and get a nice exit off the corner? But pit window is officially open now. Michael Schlack's down onto the lane in the Mag Performance Sim Racing number 14. Again, no one else has followed him, so we've had 2 takers. We've had the NJB Performance team. We've had the Mag Performance Sim Racing team. And then we finally get more takers down onto the lane. The Team Vikings 777 have followed the 14 car down onto pit road. And that has set off the chain reaction. Xanany Motorsports, Next Level Racing, and the Roaring Chicken Nuggets all down onto the lane, getting their one and only driver change done for this race. Almost halfway through. Top two cars now have a 2.7 second buffer, so they haven't managed to really blow away from the rest of the field like it kind of looks like they were going to do at the start there. You can see the lap gaps. Paul Searle has done a rather smashing job in the Ford GT to hold on to the tail end of the leaders. He's also managed to build up a little bit of a gap to the N-Race Esports with number 199. So sitting comfortably in the third and final podium position. Through the bus stop chicane once again we go then. It will be officially halfway done with this race when we cross the line. And we'll jump on board with the number 78 to see who's down onto the pit lane. Reed Miller's already committing. You can see there, preparing. And there he goes. Is he going to have any issues getting down into the fast lane? No issues whatsoever. So from second place, Reed Muller down onto the pit lane. And he's followed by Paul Searle. The two cars that have decided to stay out. The RSR by G Performance number 56 and N-Race Esports in the 199.
Clearly rolling the dice in this case. Finally, these two drivers and these two teams have been split up. Now the new drivers will come in, and this battle between RSR and Team Heusinkveld will be running rampant. What kind of a lap are RSR going to have this time out? Remember, it's critical for them to have an excellent final lap so that they cycle just out up ahead of the Heusinkveld machine. Or will the undercut pay off this time, Arjuna? Now I'm buzzing. This is the part of the GT sprint race that almost always has you in splits. That's the part I love. Here we go then.
So RSR back onto the banking through NASCAR's 1 and 2. Let's check back in with the number 78. Matt Thorg Hutzfeld has just come out of pit lane. Has somehow managed to come out behind Ashley Beard in the 111 because Ashley Beard has managed to miss his pit box. That's what's happened to Ashley Beard. Winner in race 2 from Donington. You see there on the pit lane time, 24 seconds in the pit lane, 0 seconds stationary in the box. That's not going to help his chances. He'll be back down onto the lane this time around, you have to assume. 28 minutes left on the clock. Approaching the maximum 35-minute drive time for drivers. Evando down onto the pit lane. We saw him practicing this during the end of qualifying. No issues for Evando then. As you see, the N-Race Esports car decide to follow. Pisano as well in the number 55 RSR by G Performance car has followed his teammate down onto the pit lane. We jump back to cars side by side as they work in towards the final corner. These are cars that both have to come down the pit lane. They'll get single filed out and figure that all out before having to slow down. Interesting strategy call though for Felipe Valentin, who is still out there on the track. Has not come down pit road. He is going to be getting mighty close to that maximum drive time. Check back in with Team Heusinkveld as they come across the start-finish line then. Oscar T. Koper is out and away. You can see him just in the corner of your shot as the Team Heusinkveld car gets slightly sideways through the apex of turn number 1. That will cost them a little bit of time. And the gap between first and second is about 1.5 seconds, I think, there. Slightly longer in the box for the number 78. A slightly worse outlap than they would have wanted. But their tires are up to temp and pressure. There you can see the gap, Sumil. 2.5 seconds as things stand. Oscar Koper has a bit of work to do now to keep that gap that he's managed to get.
Yep, it's going to be interesting. Oscar D. Koper gets into the car and all of a sudden he does have a fair bit of gap. So he's not under as much pressure as the RSR Esports by G Performance team was early on. But Team Heusinkveld, they're the ones really under pressure right now. They had to roll the dice. They gambled by going one lap earlier. At least for now, it hasn't quite paid off. But you never know how things could work out in the IVRA GT Sprint Series. We've seen some drama and there could be more on the way. Meanwhile, Felipe Valentin seems to be really in love with fuel saving, and he might have done quite a fair bit of that because he's gone a lap longer than everyone else, and he will be coming in right now. But meanwhile, battles going on. Is that the MAG Esports car? Yeah, that is them making a move on the Lapsat team.
Lapsat Racing is another car that hasn't come down the pit lane just yet. They are getting very close to the 35-minute maximum drive time. They have to actually get out of the car as well, so it's going to be close. Dawid Onurowicz in the number 11. Michael Schlax has handed over the 14 to Nick Madsen. Madsen now works across the start-finish line. So, gap between Oscar Koper and the Team Hoisting Belt number 78 up to 2.6 seconds. There's been a bit of a mix-up in the top 8 as things stand right now as well because of those pit stops. Let's take a little bit of a run-through on your top 8 drivers. We're watching the new race leader, RSR Esport by G Performance, who re-inherited the race lead after pit stop cycles. Team Hoisting Belt now 2.7 seconds back for the new driver behind the wheel. Nick Madsen has just gotten into the number 14. He's 6 seconds behind the race leader with the CXR Project Black losing out in the pit stop cycle. They're now 2 and a bit seconds behind the number 14. The sister car, RSR Esport by G Performance, the number 55. They're 10 seconds behind the race leader and locked in a battle with another big loser in the pit stop cycle, the N-Race Esports BMW 199. The Apex missers, not missing too many Apexes today. They're sitting in 7th place, locked in a battle with the sister Hoisting Belt car, the number 48. So lots of battles up and down the field right now. Still checking in with this lead battle. Let's watch another one of the RSR cars, which is locked in a all BMW scrap, the N-Race Esports BMW that spent almost 4 seconds longer in the box than the rest of the competitors. So a bit of work to do to make up that time lost on the track, Sommel, but N-Race Esports already looking very feisty as they poke to the outside.
This is where it gets fun. All the cars are equal, all the advantages are nullified. So no straight line performance advantage for N-Race this time. If it has to happen, it has to happen all by their own merit. Setups could also play a big role, but let's focus on the picture in hand. And N-Race, yeah, are they braking? I think they just lost a bit of time in terms of braking right now. So they are there or thereabouts, very close to the second RSR car, but seemingly not having as much performance in that part of the stack, in that part of the track. Let's see how this turns out towards the very end, but so many battles throughout the field, Arjun, and that's what makes the IVRA GT Sprint Series what it is. And in 1 hour, we're just getting some proper, incredible compressed racing.
And we get to do it all again. Flip the order around, re-rack the cars, and go racing under the night lights. Maxime Marriott is putting a lot of pressure right now onto the 55 and Michael Strogbauer. It's a few replays to take a look at, but we'll take a look at it maybe after this run that the 199 is about to have. You can see just arcing back onto the banking, trying to just build up the momentum. As we now jump on board with the car trying to do the chasing here, the 199. Trying to use that draft to the maximum potential, but not able to close up enough, so not going to get the move done into this portion of the corner. Let's take a look at 2 replays then that we got to look at. Down into turn number 1 first for Jose Arias in the Pro Driver BMW. Oh, it just sends it under braking, trying to get the move done. Fortunately, pointed in the right direction. We take a look at a second incident, also down in towards turn number 1, involving a BMW, this time the Xanady Motorsports, the French outfit, getting just a little bit of contact there with, I believe that was Team Oblivion in the Audi. We'll get a good aerial look at it here, just trying to squeeze down onto the inside of the corner, and 2 into 1 doesn't go. Team Oblivion getting squeezed all the way to the grass there. That's one of those incidents, Soma, where I'm glad I'm not in race control, because it's just such a tough call to be having to make.
You're going to upset someone with the decision, that's for sure. And Team Oblivion with the contact, it was just so tricky. I can't make a decision right here as well. I'm not going to say... Okay, I would say it if I say that. So they send them to Oblivion somewhat with that kind of move? Oh no! Jose Alonso in the second Pro Driver Esports car smashing into the wall. Now, if it would happen in real life, that Audi would straight away be under the tyres, and it would have been a rather horrifying incident.
Well, let's jump on board for this one.
Yeah, let's jump on board and take a look at what happens. I was about to say turn 1 is wretched old corner, but the bus stop can do wonders as well in terms of major crashes. So he sends it down the inside line, not a send, a sustained send, which soon turns into a sustained slap into the wall. Oh, that's buried in.
That's going to need a good long period of a safety car to get out. There you can see the tail end of it again. We'll get an aerial look as they tried to go side by side through the bus stop chicane. Not always a good opportunity to make the move happen. There you can see the resulting aftermath of the incident, as it were. Alonso has had to tow back to the pit lane, by the way, so his race is over. Gap out front. There you can see on your screen, 4.2 seconds, because Oscar Koper has decided, you know what? I want to win this race, and I want to do it in the easiest way possible. 4 seconds the gap with 20 minutes to go, Sommel, and, well, what can you say other than that BMW up front is just in its own universe right now?
Man, Oscar D. Koper, seriously, you've robbed us of a bit of a battle, mate. But in all honesty, he's doing exactly what he had to do, just being very efficient in the way he's driving the car. And that gap came up to around 1.5 seconds after the pit window ended. 4 seconds right now. He's just found an unbelievable amount of pace. I wonder where he's got that from, but clearly Team Hersing will not just able to put the hammer down. Hammer Hersing, well, bad wordplay in this case, but no, they're not just able to get that extra pace in there, and they've really lost a lot of time. But yeah, Matt Stock Hertzwell having the fastest lap, but not able to keep it together for a long period. But Pro Driver Esports BMW had a bit of an error. Have made another one as they've clobbered down into the International Horseshoe. Tell me, how many times have we seen that, Arjuna? 5, 7, 10?
That looked like a bit of the red mist descending. We'll take a look at the replay. Down into 1. Jose Arias just loses the rear slightly, a bit deep. That opens the door for Xanadu Motorsports to just poke their nose. That's what Valentin Amblar does. Oh, that's just a bit late under braking there for Arias. I'm not sure he was really in a position to try that late braking opportunity, but I think what happens here, he's just a bit worried there, Sommel, about that Audi behind and wanting to stay in front of them as well.
No, it's a clear case of racing drivers being racing drivers, isn't it? And it's somewhat of a second nature that when you lose a position, you've got to do all that you possibly can to get hold of it, to get it clean, because as a racing driver, you just can't see anyone else going ahead, especially after you've made another mistake at a corner, or you've made a mistake before. So you just scamper your way back, try everything in your powers to make sure that that position does not go away. But sometimes it just goes on in the wrong way. That position, well, you got it in your bag, that you could also have a penalty coming all the way through a few minutes later. That's exactly what could happen with Jose M. Arias in that case, but more battles going on. While one RSR by Esports G Performance car has checked out, the other one is just facing a bit of fierce competition from N-Race Esports, who've been there for quite a while, Arjuna. So, what have they got to do in this case to dig up some extra performance? Perhaps try, I don't know, slapping the RaceSpot logo at the back of the car, getting a couple of tenths per lap by that?
Yeah, well, the RaceSpot logo, a guaranteed way to get at least 10 horsepower advantage, and that might be what he needs in this. Old BMW scrap down into the bus stop chicane to go once again. The front engine BMW, not maybe the best car through the bus stop in terms of the turn-in and the responsiveness through the middle of the corner, but clearly not an issue for, at the very least, Oscar Koper out front. There is a very illuminating conversation happening in our YouTube chat about the future of GT3 racing, and at least within the iRacing service, lots of opportunity, I think, for iRacing to stamp their unique mark on this category. There are, of course, other simulators that focus specifically on this category of racing. We're not going to mention them by name, but good to see iRacing at the least committing to the GT3 machinery, the most popular racing class in the world, and, well, a lot of opinions about the state of GT3 and manufacturer involvement. Bentley recently pulling out. It was announced no more factory programs from the Bentley outfit. So we will see what happens. DTM is adopting GT3 Plus, as it's going to be called. So a lot of intrigue here. Oh, and someone has just brought up the frightening possibility of GT3 sprint racing down into turn 1 at Daytona with rain. I'm just getting a little bit scared thinking about that right now.
It would clearly remind me of the first Roval race that we had at Charlotte with NASCARs. And then all of a sudden you just tend to realize that, oh, we have to brake. That's what happened. That is exactly what could happen with rain on iRacing. When we speak about rain, it just opens the Pandora's box, to be honest. Oh, big moment there by RaceSpotTV getting on the grass. And the stable as a rock BMW can also be shaken up in certain cases. But coming back to rain, let's not go down that route. It could just spark so many big conversations that could eventually lead to absolutely nothing. Let's be honest. Let's hope that iRacing does get it though, somewhere down the line, or it just add to the prestige of the service. But coming back to the point, two BMWs still going side by side, still one not having the X factor over the other, and in that case it's just the defender that has the edge. And so that's what RSR Esports by G Performance are doing at this stage, keeping the position clean. But NRace are not giving this up so early on, Arjuna. They're sticking by like an annoying little car right there, just pestering them way all the way through.
Yeah, they really are, and this is a battle that it's a lot of fun, but at the same time it's good to see the respect being shown by the chasing car, not trying anything too desperate, not overly committing. But again, we are 3/4 done with race number 1, still a quarter of the way to go. Someone requested in our YouTube chat to show the .exe car. Well, there's a reason we're not showing it, unfortunately, my friend. Literally, they're not involved in anything. So, yes, there's fire coming out of the back, but for .exe, a rather boring race right now in 42nd place. So, there's your look in at .exe for a few moments' time. I'm going to check back in with the actual racing action. RaceSpotTV continuing to chase them down. I am looking forward to the possibility of rain, though. It's not a possibility, we must say. iRacing has confirmed they are working on it. There is no expected release date or anything like that. There are obviously so many complex subsystems that have to work together and in tune to enable something like that to happen. And over the last few years, we've of course had so many improvements that are working towards that. We have the dynamic weather system. We have the dynamic time of day system that was built on top of the dynamic weather. And so everything gets built on top of one another. Tire compounds, for example, will need rain tire compounds. That's now enabled by tire compounds, which are now a thing on the McLaren F1 car. I just noticed that the MAG Performance Sim Racing car has been a bit slow the last few laps. So this is now a three-way fight for the final step of the podium. MAG Performance and Nick Madsen, 1.5 seconds slower the last time around than the number 55 that's chasing them down. This is opening the door very slightly, Sommel. So we'll see what happens here. 12 minutes to go. Double draft. The Audi not known for being the strongest in a straight line. It might be just a little bit of a sitting duck here in the closing stages of the race.
Yep, not having the best of last laps over here, so everything could be blown right open in this case. You can see them all together. I love this corner. The run down towards NASCAR 1 and 2 is so beautiful because you've got such a wide variety of lines to choose from. You can often go very tight, stay inside, but it's just about how you can make it work. There's no one correct line through that corner. It's just about how you can sit behind in the draft. But seemingly, Arjuna, that Audi has recovered a bit of face in this case. They are not losing as much time on this lap, so maybe it just might have been a one-off on that lap, missing up their braking point somewhere and opening up the door for all the other cars behind them to get closer. So yeah, clearly battles are going on, but none too big or none too serious in this case. But it's good to see all the drivers and teams close up to each other with 11 odd minutes to go. If there's any time when things need to happen, now is the time. And now RSR Esports, here they go. They finally get closer to the Audi. Outside line it is. It's the BMW. They're going to make its way past. cheeky defending.
Well, the BMW tried to swing back to the inside, realized that move wasn't on, had to brake slightly earlier than expected. That forced Madsen slightly deep under braking. This is going to be a very interesting fight to the closing stages. Now that RSR BMW has seemingly come alive under pressure for so much of the second portion of the race, and now looking forward rather than looking backwards. Remember, this is race number 1. We're going to flip the cars around, re-rack them in reverse grid order, and set them off for 60 more minutes of racing action once we get finished here. 11 minutes still on the clock then. And well, top left-hand portion of your screen, you can see the gap between your race leader, Oscar Koper, and the Team Hoisting Belt number 78, now up to almost 6 seconds. So, well, I mean, I'm just getting very excited because, yes, race number 1 maybe hasn't been as exciting as I was hoping. Daytona known for side-by-side and drafting potentially, but I'm just relishing the prospect of throwing Oscar Koper back to the rear end of the field and telling him, you've got 60 minutes to get back to the front. So that's going to be a very interesting storyline to follow along with.
And it's not like a traditional reverse grid race, like you have top 8 or top 7, in some cases even top 10 being reversed. Here, it's the whole grid. And so we have a different qualifying session as well to make sure that the drivers qualify right there as the RSR car goes to the outside line on the Mac Performance machine, getting past some lap traffic and getting past the desired man. Does he this time out? Or are Mac Performance going to say, nope, not again? Yes, indeed they are. That's some good hard defending by Mac Performance. Clearly not having the pace on their side, but purely resolute them and keeping hold of that position. But yes, indeed, so many cars to pass in 60 minutes. We saw the last time out at Donington that it isn't exactly the easiest thing to do, even though you are the faster car. And honestly, Arjuna, that is where most of the big teams could lose their points. Not race number 1, but in race number 2 when the uncertainty levels are too big. If you want to win the championship, race 1 aside, this is where you could really lose a big ton. That is what I'm really keen on watching.
9 minutes to go then. That was very close through turn number 1. Madsen swung all the way out to the outside of the corner on the exit of 1. That opened the door for N-Race Esports to get closer in towards the International Horseshoe. This is going to be a battle all the way to the checkered flag, and this awards our third and final podium position in race number 1. BMW grunt around the outside. Not going to be sufficient into the bus stop. Madsen, stout with his defense once again, sends it back up the inside, but that's going to compromise him on the run down into 1. The grunt of the BMW is going to carry him forward once again. We jump on board with the N-Race Esports BMW. What a view he's got of side-by-side through NASCAR's turn 3 and 4. 8 minutes on the clock to go, so we're looking at approximately 4 or 5 laps, depending on when the leader comes across the line. RSR officially gets the move done. Nothing Madsen can do, and Madsen now looks to the next 8 minutes and what he can do to the inside for the next BMW. Bold move in the 199, and they're able to get the move done. Madsen loses 2 places in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, not quite working well for Nick Madsen right there in the Mac Performance car. The first one, but not much you could do in that case, but the second one could have been avoided, but we just come back to the point of turn number 1 and how challenging of a braking zone it is. It really is very confusing to find the right way forward, and once you find that golden approach of nailing turn number 1, making sure that you do it over and over and over and over and over again is just so hard because you've got your braking marker, but it just transitions in towards that really tricky mid part of the corner, and it's just so hard to do it. It's very, very hard to repeat. It's almost like curling a ball properly while playing football, while you're dribbling. You can do it while standing, it's alright. But when you're dribbling, it becomes really hard. That's what turn 1 really is like. And Nick Madsen making that mistake, but Pro Driver Esports back in the battles yet again.
Yeah, Pro Driver side by side with the Quasar Audi. Yoni Waters, who's had some impressive showing in other IVRA competitions, fends off the challenge. They're getting closer up and down through the field right now, so this is for 15th and 16th. The .exe McLaren has been scrapping it out with Next Level Racing in their Audi. Contact made between the BMW and Audi. More door-to-door contact through the middle of the corner. Waters holds on. But this is a rather feisty battle, and we have to remember these guys are going to be flipped around and be toward the end of the top 10 for the start of race number 2. Yes, there are points on offer, but they also have to consider their starting spot in race number 2. Side by side, further forward, N-Race throws it down the inside, somehow manages to get it slowed down, but Madsen's going to send it side by side. More contact into the international horseshoe they go. The number 199 still on the inside. Madsen's going to try and hold it around the outside. I thought he was going to go for the switchback for a moment's time. That BMW manages to get out front. The Audi slots back into line. And wow, that was a close moment there. That BMW there, Somo, really sent it into turn 1, and Madsen returns the favor.
Tempers are flying here with the final 6 minutes of this race. Madsen and Strodberger, in fact, I beg your pardon, both are fighting hard in this case. RSR have gone ahead. It's end race versus Mac Performance, dueling hard towards the very end. One car has the advantage in one corner, the other one getting the nose back in the other one. That is why Daytona is such an epic place for such an epic race. Here comes end race once again. Almost bump drafting, are they? Oof, this is getting exciting. To the outside line, Madsen with a bit of cheeky defending. No send this time out. That's going to happen in turn number 1. And with the variety of lines at turn number 1, we could see some rather baffling racing.
I think Madsen got a bit squirrely on the exit of the bus stop. He was a bit tight rejoining the banked part of the track, but here comes the grunt then. All the while, by the way, Michael Strohbauer in that RSR number 55 waves bye-bye. The gap now 1 second. Are we going to see another bold move here? Madsen's going to defend the inside, forces the BMW to look for another move. Madsen gets squirrely under the braking, opens the door for the BMW, throwing it down the inside again for N-Race. They're back up into 4th position. This is great stuff. But all the while, we must say, that 3rd and final podium position, now 1.3 seconds clear of this battle.
The RSR car is just making its way up ahead as these two scrap with each other, and crucially for Nick Madsen, that squiggly move could have saved him a position, because essentially not only was that just the car getting loose, but it also was, it's a cheeky way of defending your inside line. It didn't work, clearly. He just went out wide far more than he should have, and the end race car, much like an opportunistic driver, saw the gap, put his foot in there, and got the position for himself. Good racing. And is that Jonathan Sterling in the CXR Project A car right there behind? So they scrapped so hard that the CXR car that was miles and miles away is just 3 seconds behind. Not that it's going to matter much with 3 minutes to go, but hey ho.
Well, that Ford actually was running up in 3rd place before the pit window, so that's a bit of a shame that that Ford not going to be a factor at the end of race number 1. I think now, though, this battle is done and dusted for that 3rd and final podium position. That Audi doesn't have the straight line performance to really pull up to the back of the N-Race 199, and with about 2 laps left to go, I'm pretty confident that Michael Strohbauer, the mechanical engineering student in the RSR number 55, feeling pretty confident as things stand. Here comes the run, though, from Madsen, back across the start-finish line. BMW holds the inside, going to make it difficult for the Audi. They both go deep under braking. N-Race once again somehow manages to make the corner. They don't bang doors this time around. Side by side, Madsen pokes his nose in front. Inside braking for the BMW, manages to make it work. Cut back from Madsen. This is fantastic stuff. Madsen back in front. 2.5 minutes to go, and I just said this battle was done and dusted. I'm glad I put my commentator's curse on this one.
Absolutely onerous, this one. The way they're fighting, it's almost like the fireworks up in the air, which they are going to be in a few moments' time when we get into the darkness. The end race car was just forcing him to go to the outside line, which is not where he want to go for turn number 1. Oh, look at this. Oblivion Racing going side by side on the midfield as well. What is it with Audis being sent to the outside line? And they just saved it. That was absolutely incredible stuff from Matt Loveridge.
Sorry, not Matt Loveridge. His teammate, Thomas Cope, now behind the wheel. Let's take a look at this replay, because somehow that Audi is still on track. You see here, side by side with the Quasar Ferrari. They're going to try and go around the outside. Doesn't work, so they have to use that curbing on the right-hand side of the track. Somehow, they managed to keep it pointing in a straight line. That was fantastic stuff. We jump back to the live pictures, because this battle is not over. This is on the edge of the top 10. The Team Vikings 777 in 11th place, trying to hold on from Quasar and Team Oblivion. End race, by the way, side by side with Nick Madsen. This is a great end to our first race. This is the final lap of the race as well. So white flag in the air. Madsen holds the inside, continues around the outside this time for the BMW. That's not what we've seen the BMW be able to make work, and indeed, the 199 slides a little further back, 0.4 of a second between 4th and 5th. The gap between 3rd and 4th, now 1.7 seconds. So, RSR by G Performance in a very, very comfortable spot, sitting 1st and 3rd as things run. Doesn't look like there's going to be much of a challenge for them. There are a few other battles. It's not like we're trying to ignore them. There was a battle for 20th place slightly earlier. There's a battle for 16th that's just about to start brewing. A battle for 17th as well. I mean, there's all sorts of fighting up and down the field. But out front, this is the main battle. N-Race Esports trying to close in on 4th position, Nick Madsen. But eyes focus now on the RSR by G Performance number 56 for Oscar Koper. He got into that car with a 1.5 second advantage, and after 30 minutes, he now leads by 7 seconds. He's going to turn it around, start at the back of the field, and make his way towards the front under the night lights for Oscar Koper and his teammate, Boris Avando. A perfect start to their race weekend. They're going to take the race win here in race number 1. They'll be looking for race number 2 to go as smoothly as they cross the line to take home the race win. Check back in with this battle for 4th position, because it's going to be a photo finish to the line. Contact made. Oh no, that's going to give the position to the N-Race 199, I'm pretty sure. Drama to the line. I think Race Control is going to have to take a look at that one, Sobel.
Oh my god. Oh my god. That is how you end a race. That got wild. What was the Audi doing? They just got checked up. They were trying to make sure that the end race car does not get the draft in any way whatsoever. Then they got frantic. Then they made sure that the elbows were out. And who got it? Oh no, my goodness me. Was it the BMW?
I think it was the BMW.
Now, when you leave a commentator speechless, you know you've put up quite a show. That was amazing. Ah.
Well, it didn't always have constant action. What it did have was a steady drip of constant anticipation of what was about to happen. We still have a few cars left to cross the line, so we'll wait for the final contenders to make their way across the line, and we will wait for 3 drivers, hopefully, or 3 teams to come and join us in the booth so we can talk to them post-race number 1. Because for RSR by G Performance, the number 56 and the number 55, nothing we can say, Samuel, other than almost perfection there. I mean, for the number 56, not much of a challenge, and for the 55 car, if qualifying had been a bit better, I think they might have been closer to the front, dicing it out with their teammates.
Yeah, their pace was good. Their pace was right up there for the number 55 car, if not better. Team Helsingwell 78, well, I was expecting quite a bigger battle between RSR and Helsingwell towards the end, but Matt Stark-Hertzfeld put in the fastest lap, but couldn't quite sustain that pace, let's be honest, and that's why Oscar de Koper just put in the hammer down and taking home a 1-3 for RSR. Just near perfect, as you mentioned, Arjuna. A clinical drive for them, but now the best part is, they have to be sent all the way back, and you've got to wonder, is winning race number 1 the best thing in the world to do for your championship? Might look fancy to have a race-winning trophy, but as we've seen time and again, in the long run it may just not be the best thing in the world.
Well, no one has managed to win both races on a weekend just yet, but let's take a look then at our results from race number 1. RSR Esport by G Performance, and The guitar player, Oscar Koper, takes home the win, 7 seconds clear of the team hoisting belt number 78. The sister car, the number 55, and Michael Strogbauer, the mechanical engineering student, he ends up in 3rd, wrapping up an excellent race 1 for the RSR outfit. N-Race Esports does take home 4th position, but I have a feeling there's going to be a bit of post-race investigations between the number 199 and the number 14. CXR Project Black struggled post-pit stop. Jonathan Sterling ends up 16 seconds behind the race winner. The Apex Missers didn't miss too many Apexes here. They end up in 7th, one of their best results this season so far. The sister car to the number 78 team hoisting belt 48 in 8th place. NJB Performance in 9th. The Leipert Esports number 10 car in 10th. The Quasar Sim Racing Ferrari ends up in 11th with a Team Vikings 777 locked in a close fight all the way till the end with a Team Oblivion Racing number 64. The Roaring Chicken Nuggets and Nick Stoop ends in 14th. Quasar Sim Racing and Yoni Waters in 15th. Pro Driver Esports in 16th. .exe in their McLaren in 17th. Next Level Racing ends up in 18th. Xanity Motorsports, the French outfit, down in 19th. And Altitude Esports, winner in race 2 last time out in Donington, finishes in 20th. We'll scroll through the rest of the finishers. Shipsky Racing, Lapsat Racing Team, Mayer Sim Speed Performance. A lot of these drivers, you'll notice, the likes of HM Engineering, for example, getting caught out on that start lap incident. Bit of an issue through the start zone for some of our contenders. And just 29 drivers then in today's race. So that was a fun race number 1. And I tell you what, Sommel, you are standing by. We've got 3 teams to speak to. You're standing by with the first of them, our race winner, the number 56 and one half of the winning duo, Boris Avando.
Microphone activated.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Boris, firstly, many congratulations, mate. That was an epic drive. How close did it get in the first stint? Because we saw your battle becoming very close with the Helsingborg team.
Oh, it was so close. We're very evenly matched, but my car had a little bit more exit speeds, and I was able to maximize that with a defensive line. But it was a really tough battle. Had to keep a lot of concentration.
And you mentioned about the advantage of the BMW in terms of straight line speed. We saw the Audi was getting closer on the entry to the corners. How was it like to manage it and just to sustain all the pressure?
Well, really, I think our advantage was acceleration. Top speed, the Audi has a little bit more top speed. So it was just key to make sure keep the car behind me, and that's what I did.
And must be so satisfied winning race number 1. But what does it feel like to go all the way back of the grid for race number 2?
Well, we prepared, and I think we have a pretty good setup to get ourselves a nice, hopefully, podium position. We'll see how it goes. It's always a tough race, the second race.
But Boris, finally, do you think it'll be slightly easier with Daytona being a wider track in race number 2?
It could be, but the infield is always tough. It's tricky. Cars slide around quite a bit, so you just have to be very careful.
Boris, just before we let you go, anyone you'd like to thank for this big win?
Definitely like to thank my team. Without them, without their help prepping for this race, really couldn't have made it happen. Also want to thank our sponsor, G Performance.
Well, congratulations, Boris. All the very best for race number 2. Should be fun.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys.
So that was Boris Avando then, one half of the winning duo in the RSR by G Performance number 56. Next then, let's talk to half of the second place finishers, the number 78 Team Hoisting Belt Machine, and Sommel Aurora is standing by.
Matt, what kind of a race was it for you? Firstly, congratulations on being number 2. Was quite a fun one, wasn't it?
To be honest, it was just about damage limitation. Max did a great job to qualify the car on P2 and then hold on to the leader in the slipstream and pulled out a quite good gap for me. But in the second stint, when we were out of the tow, we had no chance to follow the BMW, and we had to to fear the guys behind. They were catching up quite quickly, but in the end it was P2 is a good result for us. So yeah, on to the next one.
Mats, do you think the performance was just equal between both of you? Because you mentioned the tow was, I think, the main defining reason why you couldn't quite close up to the RSR car.
I hope so. Yeah, I think Max is coping a bit better with the Audi. I have some problems, especially in the slow corners. But nevertheless, we are quite on the same level, I think, and yeah, quite a good duo for the season.
Should be fun. Matt, finally, what's your strategy for race number 2, and who would you like to thank for this big result?
Yeah, straight to the strategy. I don't know. Survive the first corner, the first lap, and then find a good partner to yeah, be in the slipstream and navigate through the traffic. And yeah, I want to thank Heusingfeld, our supporters, and yeah, and my teammate Max and the other guys, Andre and Antonino, who is giving his debut today and did a great job.
Well, many congratulations, Matt. All the very best for race number 2.
Thank you.
So that was part of the second place finishers then in our race number 1, and we don't have any of the other podium finishers ready to go, so we're going to take a bit of a break. But before we do that, Samuel, let's just recap that race number 1. We like to do this because, like we say, we'll take a look at the event format very quickly there, you can see. So 2 of our 60-minute sprint races, and take a bit of a breather. Round 1 is done, race 1 is done rather, and now race 2, we've been mentioning it, reverse grid race, and, well, based on what we saw there in race 1, putting the likes of the RSR teams all the way at the back, it's going to be a very interesting proposition to watch how they decide to make their way through the field.
Should be very amazing. If historical races are anything to go by, race 2 should be even more chaotic. It should have more sustained drama all the way through. I can't wait to see how this goes. Should be a fun one.
Should be really fun indeed. We're going to take then a very short break here live on RaceSpotTV. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back then with coverage of race number 2 from our third weekend of competition in the IVRA GT Sprint Series, live from the Daytona International Speedway. We'll be right back. Hello everyone and welcome back to the IVRA GT Sprint Series in the Daytona International Speedway, where we're about to get underway for the second of our 60-minute sprint races. Thank you for joining us here on RaceSpotTV, where you're joining myself, Arjuna Kankipati, and the wonderful Somil Aurora. TV cameras, as always, provided to us by Istvan Ballo and TrackCams22. Additional car cameras provided to us by our very own Tyler Maxson. You can head on over to timing71.org to follow along with live timing and scoring. Follow your favorite team and driver throughout the remaining 60 minutes of racing action. Let's take a look at the track conditions very briefly because, well, not much change from what we just witnessed. We are racing in the virtual November/December time period, so the virtual winter, and as a result, 21 degrees Celsius is the track temperature. We'll take one more look at our series schedule because we're about to hit the halfway point in our season. Silverstone and Donington Park hosted 2 rounds of action before, and here we are with 1 race to go before we have completed 9 races this season. Sawmill, it's a great calendar that we have, and while the cars are getting out there and gridding for race number 2 in the weekend, just thinking about the remaining 3 weekends we have after this. Silverstone, Daytona, very wide open circuits. But now, Zandvoort, Road Atlanta, and Mosport, they're all tracks where track limits and making sure you don't go off into the grass, very, very vital. But it's also 3 tracks where overtaking is going to be very, very difficult.
You could end up seeing 3 very similar races happening over there, and that's not necessarily a very bad thing. Because as we saw in Donington, even at tracks where passing can be a bit hard, the racing can be just as intense, and that is exactly what we're going to get from the next 3 races, not rounds, because of course we have 2 different rounds in each race, but that's going to be very interesting. I'm particularly interested in seeing how Road Atlanta plays out, because for GT3 cars, and even LMP2s for that matter, that track is properly amazing, but as it goes, when the opportunities are limited, the drivers try even harder. And sometimes the battles right there in that case may just be intense.
So cars are underway for qualifying. We said this is a reverse grid race, but the way this works is all the teams head out there on the track. They have a set lap time from race control, which they must hit, and that's what they are doing right now. So we're about to get our field ordered in the order that race control wants it to, assuming no one makes any mistakes in this portion of the qualifying process. Cars must be classified in that opening race to be included in the reverse grid. If you don't finish enough of the laps, you basically just start at the tail end of the field. HM Engineering, for example, going to be one of those teams that starts from the back by default. HM Engineering, by the way, do have a real-life driver competing with them in today's race. Alexei Nesov is a Formula 4 driver. He competed in the International GT Open this year, competed in the GT3 machines, coming in 2nd place in that championship. He's got 17 career karting championships as well, so great to see some of our real racing drivers heading on over into this virtual GT3 Sprint Series. Just a reminder as well, you can follow us for lots of sim racing action and the entire breadth of series that we cover here at RaceSpotTV. We've got it all from the GT machines to, Indy Pro 2000. We'll have one more race this weekend, or rather this Friday, that we'll be broadcasting for them. And maybe next year you can follow us as we broadcast the opening series of the Dallara IR01, the brand new open wheel car designed in conjunction by the iRacing staff members and Dallara. So follow us across YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and Instagram to keep in touch with us. So, just a few minutes to go in qualifying then, and I mean, we'll just look at the event format. There's not much value in us looking at the championship standings at this point, Samuel, because you raised a very valid point in race number 1. For teams that are focusing on the championship here, the priority is always going to be maximizing points in race number 1 and then minimizing the impact of your starting position in race number 2. So this is a really interesting race here that we're about to get underway, and I mean, RSR by G Performance, they're going to be all the way at the back, Sawmill, and they've got a lot of work to make their way through the field.
Think of it as in the world of business as sales revenue maximization. In a way, I think the most efficient way of doing that would be to raise your prices extremely high. Initially, there may not be a big demand change. You could be getting in some big revenues for that 1 year, but it doesn't quite work out, does it, in the long run? So that's going to be something very tricky for them to make sure that they do win while not, of course, losing sight of the whole championship. So it sounds fancy, it sounds brilliant to say, oh, we won race number 1, oh, this is going to be so fun, we have X amount of race victories in our hand this year. But when it comes to maximizing your points and when it comes to maximizing your market share in a long time, that's the conjunction that we're bringing up right here, it's all about thinking about the long perspective. And sometimes just going down that rather dirty route of not winning races, that unshiny one, that could be the one that gives you the most advantage in the long run.
It's all about maximizing what you're dealt with, right? Because race number 1,
exactly.
You said it, race number 1 is the only race where it's ultimately all about driver performance. Race number 2 is a much more luck-based kind of an affair, right? Where you end up is the hand that you have to manage, and if you can't manage it, you're going to be in a really difficult spot. So just how many minutes? We've got 2 minutes left in qualifying here before we get into the race. And really, this is one of those races, Daytona, anything could happen, and we just have to hope. We just have to hope. The start goes a little bit cleaner this time around. We've seen now for the second consecutive race weekend, teams getting a little bit caught out by these start zones.
Oh yeah, it could be so tricky. Turn number 1, that section, we saw it not only just in the start, but also meanwhile through the race. Because you've got so many different lines, because the braking here is so tricky, it just is so easy for you to clobber into someone. If not on the entry, then maybe even on the exit, because it's soon followed by a chicane. So that's just the kind of racing that we can expect at Daytona. For some it's an advantage, for the others it's just an open opportunity to, well, go ahead and crash, I'm afraid.
But we'll be hoping that we don't get too many of those. We only have 29 cars on the grid, which I don't think is too much of a disappointment, because 29 cars, still plenty of racing action, right, Sawmill? And it just means that we avoid some of the chaos that we've seen at some of these starts.
Absolutely. It's good to see more people on the grid, but beyond the point, adding more people in just makes it more chaotic. So 29 is just about perfect.
So 30 seconds to go roughly until race control is going to give the command for teams to line up on the back straight just before the bus stop chicane. Lights are well and truly illuminated right now. It's a glorious winter night in Daytona, and cars about to go racing at the world famous Daytona International Speedway. Race control is going to manually tell the cars to go line up as well. So we are a little bit of behind the scenes work. Race control doing a great job to keep on top of all the action. We also have a few updates from race control that we'll get to on the formation lap. So, grid set. Let's go ahead and walk you through then the grid for round number 2. So on the pole position and leading us to the green, it's going to be the Archer Brothers Esports and Samuel Robson in the 202. Qualified decently well for race number 1, but issues have dropped them to the rear of the field. That will turn them to the front. Pro Driver Esports in the number 24. They'll line up in second, with Altitude Esports and the 23 car lining up in third. Awesome Motorsports Group and the 72, they complete row number 2. And row number 3, it's Mayor Sim Speed Performance and Laps at Racing Team at the number 11. Shipski Racing in the 222, lining up next to them. Last time out, race number 2 winner, Altitude Esports, lining up on the edge of row number 4. Xanity Motorsports in the number 44 lines up in 9th place, with Next Level Racing in their Audi in 10th. The sole McLaren that we have in our field, the .exe esports car, they line up on the inside of row number 6. Pro Driver Esports in their Audi to their outside, with the Quasar Sim Racing Audi lining up alongside the Roaring Chicken Nuggets on row number 7. Team Oblivion Racing lines up in 15th, with the Team Vikings 777 in 16th. Quasar Sim Racing and the Ferrari lines up then in 17th place, with Jens Baukij in the NJB Performance 733. Team Hoisingveld, the first of their cars, lines up in 19th place, with the Apex Missers lining up in 20th. CXR Project Black starting in 21st place this time around. with Mag Performance Sim Racing Team next to them. N-Race Esports in the 199, they'll line up in 23rd position, with third place finisher in race number 1, RSR Esport by G Performance, in 24th place. Team Hoisingveld, second place in race number 1, they'll line up in 25th, and to their outside, RSR Esport by G Performance and Oscar Koper as he looks to work his way through the field. HM Engineering, they had issues on the start. They'll line up then at the tail end of the field along with Leipert Esports and Laps at Racing Team, the number 17. So cars already rolling then on what is a shortened formation lap. We just walked you through the grid, and it is a very interesting order, I must say. Very mixed up. And is anyone going to be able to do what Altitude Esports did last time around? Are they going to be able to use this reverse grid race, starting from the front, to hold on and grab a race win? Ashley Beard in the 111 with a splendid defensive driving display last time out at Donington. I'm sure it's going to be a bit more difficult at Daytona to defend as stoutly as he did at Donington, but pace car then about to dive onto the safety of pit lane, and he will leave the field in control of Samuel Robson. Into the start zone we go then, and away we go. Green flag in the air, and Robson has jumped away very nicely as we dived our way down into turn number 1. The second of the Altitude Esports car already looking to work up into second place, but there you can see the car stringing their way through turn number 1. We managed to get through this start without any issues. Too wide for 5th and 6th. That's Mayor Simspeed, who briefly looked to the outside Altitude in their second car, now looks to try and get up into 5th position. So the Altitude team really trying to make some hay here, but Sommel cleanly through turn number 1, and well, if you check in at the rear end of your field, the big movers haven't really gone anywhere yet.
They haven't quite been able to capitalize on this start that can be so chaotic, but in fact someone has lost out. It is the Apex Missers who are facing the wrong way around, and oh my goodness me, Altitude Esports, the team that won the last reverse grid race, are all the way at the back.
Yeah, they were.
How has this happened?
And there's the no, that's the Team Vikings car that's also off as well. So we've had a few more issues this time on lap number 1. Archer Brothers now have a 1 second advantage over Jose Alonso in the number 24. Out of the cars that we were expecting some big moves to come out of, no one has really made any big moves just yet. The RSR cars are in 22nd and 23rd places respectively, but everyone else has kind of just been strung out. We've got about 5 seconds separating the top 10 as things stand. You see the Roaring Chicken Nuggets getting past Next Level Racing down into the bus stop. Great move there from Nick Stoop in the number 99. They're side by side out of the bus stop as well. Great stuff here as we start another 60-minute sprint race.
Going side by side at last, the .exe car in the midst of a battle. What's going on here? To the inside goes the Audi once again. This could be some interesting racing happening right now. They can't try over, he'll not be getting the draft. In fact, .exe could make this happen around the outside. Nope, not quite.
So there we go. Oh, the McLaren looks to the inside, tries to poke its nose. That number 77 cuts it the route off, though. The McLaren's going to have a fight back down into the International Horseshoe. Has to defend from Team Oblivion. Also makes the aggressive move under braking. The flames roar out the back, and .exe up into 12th position already. We jump back slightly further up in this group. You can see a small train starting to develop behind the number 73 and Florian Volk for Mayor Simspeed Performance. He's got Xanity Motorsports and the Laps at Racing Team, the 2 cars immediately behind him. Let's check on in with our podium from the last race. The Team Hoisingveld 78 has already lost out and runs down in 24th position. But as we work lap number 2 here, Sommel, I'm looking at my timing screen, and reminder, live timing and scoring is available at timing71.org. I'm not seeing any big movers at this point in time further back in your pack right now.
Yep, Alexei Nevsov with HM Engineering has made 3 or 4 positions up. He's in a P19, but nothing quite significant. And now it's the RSR by G Performance 56 car that has passed the HM Engine, the Hoisingveld one. Meanwhile, Lapsat Racing are trying to get something for themselves, fighting against the Pro Driver BMW, and now the Roaring Chicken Nuggets have got a battle on their hands. don't go too naughty, boys. Outside the yellow line, you're not going to just lose control, but also perhaps impede track limits. Lap start going side by side, Ferrari versus Audi. Back in the tri-oval, it's Altitude Esports, Mark Fletcher going wheel to wheel here.
And this is the car that won race number 2 last time around. Around the outside, Fletcher sends it. He's a veteran in GT3 machinery, and he makes it work. That Ferrari has been a bit disadvantaged by the BOP, but Fletcher, on a mission, he wants a second consecutive race win here in the IVRA GT Sprint Series. Now up to second, 1.2 seconds to close in front of him. We jump back to that battle with the McLaren once again. Lapsat Racing Team continues to lose out now. They've gone from 6th all the way to 11th in about half a lap's time and managed to shut the door for now. You can also see the Roaring Chicken Nuggets are getting feisty with the Pro Driver car in front of them. So there's a lot of exciting action here in the reverse grid race. Around the outside, Mayor Simspeed defends the position from Shipsky Racing. So Shipsky Racing looks to try and get past. They struggled a little bit more in race number 1, but Smooth and Steady took them to the checkered flag and gave them this impressive starting spot for this second race. If you take a look, by the way, on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see the movers and shakers that we're talking about. You can see that while there are people moving up and down, there's no real big movers at this point just yet. N-Race Esports up 7 positions. They'd be the one car to think about. Shipsky Racing does manage to get the move done around the outsides, and they're up now into 6th position, and they look to now try and claw back the gap to Xanadu Motorsports.
Meanwhile, Altitude have also gained 6th position, so they're the ones really doing the climbing at the very top. Now, of course, a gap of 7/10 of a second behind Samuel Robson. They've got to make sure they stay in the draft train, because as we saw Team Hersing with last time, if you're not there, it doesn't work out. Side by side racing though in the midfield. Roaring Chicken Nuggets in the inside line. And man, the Pro Driver car going to the middle. This is risky stuff.
There's more contact. The Roaring Chicken Nuggets through the grass. They're going to hold on to it just about, but they've lost 3 positions. That Pro Driver BMW already had damage to the front end of that car. What is happening here at the start of race number 2? Race number 1, slightly more pedestrian. Race number 2 delivers the action. Nick Madsen down the inside, by the way, of that Lapsat Racing Team Ferrari. They're now down into 13th place. So that's 7 positions dropped for that Ferrari in the course of 2 laps' time. This is absolute craziness. Further back in this pack as well, Team Oblivion Racing has just gotten a move done as HM Engineering behind them gets squirrely under brake. Team Hoisingveld side by side as well. Something's happened, by the way, to the second of the Team Hoisingveld cars, that 48 machine behind the sister car. So lots of action further back in the pack. You can see that's the Quasar Ferrari outside of N-Race Esports as well. N-Race doing a good job to try and claw up some positions. Chicken Nuggets, they're side by side with the Mag Performance team. So this is fantastic. And what I'm going to do is, top left portion of your screen, you'll be able to follow along with the top 3 as they run, because Mark Fletcher has already reeled in the Archer Brothers team out front. Side by side though, Mag Performance up in towards 11th position, so they're working towards the top 10, and this train of cars that finished well in race number 1 is starting to creep towards those top 15 drivers. So there you can see it. This is where, Sawmill, the majority of those race 1 finishes in the top 5 are, and it's a lot of work for them still to go.
Yeah, they've got to climb their way up through everyone. The N-Race car yet again trying to make a move around the outside. They've done quite a few of these moves here today. Meanwhile, Chicken Nuggets are also closing up. But look at the gap, hey, at the top. Archer Brother Esports have been reeled in completely, and Altitude Esports are your new leaders.
Let's take a look at a RaceSpotTV replay. How did Fletcher get the move done? There was a mistake from the Archer Brothers. Too much momentum on the entry, and Fletcher just seized the spot and finds the chance. Nesov is off the track, by the way. HM Engineering is having an issue, so back to the live pictures then. Nesov's going to have to rejoin. This is at the International Horseshoe, so the real racing driver, who is rather young, we must say, 17 years old. Nesov back onto the track. We'll grab another look at this replay. You see the tail end of them there. That's the Quasar Ferrari, the number 25, getting involved. But this is just the product, Sawmill, of such close racing. We'll jump on board with the Quasar Ferrari, but there you can see HM Engineering aggressively cutting them off and then slamming on the brakes right in front of that Ferrari. Very difficult for anything to happen here, as you see 3 wide through turn number 1.
Well, try explaining that to Alexei Nesov. He'll be pretty agitated. Fists of fury being flying around. Yeah, they just get concertinaed and everyone in such a small circle. Crashes are bound to happen. Look at this now. Both the RSR cars going past Kezar.
So RSR up into 17th and 18th. A long way still to go. Let's jump further back up the pack. Shipsky Racing and Xanity Motorsports doing battle in an all BMW. Scrap over 5th place out front, by the way. Here you can see Fletcher in that Ferrari is now trying to run away. Archer Brothers and Samuel Robson doing a good job to hold on to that tail, but like I was saying, Fletcher is such an experienced GT3 driver. He's campaigned GT3 machines for other outfits in the past as well. Now part of this new Altitude Esports team, looking to get a second consecutive race win here in these reverse grid races. He will have to hand over to his teammate, of course, Ashley Beard, who, as mentioned, had that fantastic defensive driving. As there's an issue. Oh no, this is a big issue involving RSR, Team Hoisingveld, all sorts of teams. Apex Misters getting involved as well. This is still going on, coming through the International Horseshoe. RaceSpotTV replay up on your screen right now. We'll pick them up going through turn number 1, Sommel, and just walk us through what's going to happen here to the RSR cars in front.
I thought a horseshoe was supposed to be a sign of luck, but here, it's taken away the luck for so many teams. Oh no, stuck on the back, sent from one of the Hoisingveld cars. And it's just Hoisingveld clambering into an RSR car, that to the one fighting for the championship. Talk about a narrative right here. They just get, I don't know, there wasn't even a send right there on the Kassar car. The Kassar car very smartly blocks it off, but then gets hit by the RSR machine. And the question that I have in mind is which RSR car that is. It's the number 55 Arjuna.
It is, and that is not the championship leader then. Yeah. No, it is. It is the championship leader. You were right the first time. So the championship leader has just been taken out by his other championship rival. So the number 78, Race Control, is going to have, I'm sure, a task on their hands after this, because this race number 2 is proving really hectic. Mayor Sim Speed Performance losing a whole heap of positions on the outside, likely having to serve a slowdown penalty from the bus stop chicane. The sister RSR car now up into 14th place all this time. So Oscar Koper, who showed that fantastic performance in race number 1, now looks to try and break his way up into the top 10 in the order. .exe side by side with the Mag Performance car driven by Nick Madsen around the outside for Madsen, and he's going to make this one work. So Madsen's going to slot up into 9th position. And he's working now the edge of the top 8. So Madsen has been one of the big movers so far. You've also got the likes of N-Race Esports back there, Sommel, who have been moving up a whole heap of positions. Let's, once again, left-hand side of your screen, you'll be able to take a look at the positions gained. But look at that, the Mag Performance Sim Racing team up 13 spots so far as they try and work to the edge of the top 5.
Now, we know Daytona is a wide circuit. We expected some big gains with Mag Performance. They've been stunning. 13 positions, and the number 56 RSR car has taken advantage of all the chaos, including involving their teammates, to get up to P14. But you've got to come back and think about Altitude Esports, haven't you? 7 positions gained. By far and away, you can call them reverse grid experts, because at this stage, they're mastering it.
Well, I think the bigger question becomes, if you are in that Altitude Esports camp, what's happening in race number 1? How do we improve our performances and get that figured out? The Ferrari, with its slightly weaker top end, is struggling to pull away the gap. But you see the lap gaps there. That 111 clearly has significant performance, at least through the infield. Robson able to close back in using that draft around the banked part of the track. Jump back to this battle for 5th, 6th, and 7th. Jose Arias in the Pro Driver BMW at the back with that damage. You also see behind, side by side, they work through turn number 2. .exe trying to get the move done on the Quasar Audi. Not going to get it done there. And that's going to open the door to cars behind to start closing the gap. Roaring Chicken Nuggets and N-Race Esports, the 2 cars directly behind, trying to get in on the fun. This is developing into a very interesting race at this point in time. You can follow along again, remember, live timing and scoring is available on timing71.org, because, well, Sommel, you're following along with that very same timing screen right now. These gaps are coming and going every corner. things are happening, different lines are being taken, and the story of the race is going to be written in the last 15 minutes.
Very variable. There's a lot of things going on. I mean, for instance, Pro Driver Esports have always seemed to be in a battle. They're closing up in the gaps, and now Mark Fletcher is having to defend at the very top because Samuel Robson and the Archer brother cars, he's just closed up quite a fair bit on the entry to the bus stop chicane. He's getting closer, but Mark Fletcher is doing a good job in sustaining his lead, so he's managing everything well, but you never know, it could change in a flash. Meanwhile, Xanity getting close. Very close.
Very close indeed. They're going to go to the outside. That's going to compromise them slightly. That Pro Driver car is going to poke the nose to the inside, forces Xanity to hold the high line. That was almost contact. Are they going to go 3 wide here? Pro Driver is going to stick to the inside just for now. Xanity, are they going to lose out here to the Pro Driver car across the start-finish line? The BMW sends it down the inside. Shibsky Racing's around. Contact was made. More contact is made. All 3 cars involved in that one. Xanity Motorsports, the only car that gets away fairly cleanly. Shibsky Racing, by the way, still pointed in the wrong direction.
What in the world did that... was that, rather? Big accident at turn number 1. It was never going to end well, let's be very honest. With 3 cars getting so close to each other, heading into that corner, you knew something would happen. And Shibsky, they lost it on their own, and then just clambered into the other car.
I don't know if they lost it on their own. Let's try and get a better look here. Maybe contact with that Xanity... Oh, no, there is definitely a little bit of contact there with the Xanity BMW. Get a look here at the secondary contact that turns around the Pro Driver car. They're lucky not to get collected by Mag Performance there as well. So that was that incident down in towards turn number 1. Back to the live pictures, and we rejoin a whole train of cars once again. This laps at Racing Team number 11 Ferrari that we pick up. Once running up in 6th place, now down in 12th. But right in front, the Pro Driver BMW tries to get a position back on Team Oblivion Racing. Side by side into the bus stop. Never a smart idea. The BMW going to give it up? Yes, he is. He's going to slot back into line, use the grunt off the corner. He does have that damage to the front end that we've talked about. And that's going to hurt him all the way through the banking. Gap out front, still 0.3 of a second, so Fletcher is being held honest here. He's not being afforded the opportunity to run away with this one, but we're going to watch this battle then on the edge of the top 10. It's a battle brewing as well for 13th and 14th place. The CXR Ford looks to the outside, builds up its momentum. The BMW in the meantime going to still hold the outside. That Ford's going to try and gain 2 positions in 1. Only 1 spot gain there. The Ferrari comes back at the BMW. He manages to go side by side in towards the horseshoe section. The BMW on the inside, though, is going to hold the corner, and Next Level Racing tries to follow them down the inside. This is really interesting stuff. The jockeying for position, track position, not just in terms of the strategy, Sommel, but the track position in terms of the on-track battle. It's all about placing your car in the right position, and that's what we're seeing right now as the Laps at Racing car positions their car perfectly to hold off the challenge from behind.
You know, if you're a BMW, you just don't want to be on the outside line of turn number 1 because the Audi can just nail down the power so much better. That's what we saw in the battle towards the very end in the last race too. So, lots of variables to consider. Everything is just being very interesting. And Daytona being Daytona, so many different lines. Here we go again then. Another Audi versus BMW battle. Maxim Racing, they've gained so many positions. I've got another one then.
And that was nice and easy into the bus stop. The Xanity BMW just gives up the position and doesn't lose too much time. He does compromise his entry into the corner and is going to give Yoni Waters a nice healthy dose of draft all the way down into turn number 1. Let's check in with the race leaders for just a few moments time here because the gap between them, just 0.2 of a second. But if you can take a look, top left-hand portion of your screen, you will see the gap to the 3rd place car up to now 4.6 seconds, and that's going to be... We saw some variations in the, not strategy necessarily, someone, but just pit lane time. We saw certain teams taking more times than others. I hope that we're going to get to see this battle get continued on the other side of the pit window, because we're just 5 minutes away from the pit window opening.
Wait, are we? Oh my goodness me, time flies. You caught me by surprise there, Arjuna. It's been such a fun race, I didn't even realize, on a very honest note. But of course, being such a fun race, you get to see chaos like this one as well. Next level racing seemingly involved in, or rather next level accident this.
That is...
Next level.
That is... No, bizarre was the word I was trying to use. Let's try and get a better look here. Does the Audi lose it all by themselves? Under braking. Yes, they do. They managed to lose the rear end very early. Mayor SimSpeed are very, very fortunate to not get mixed up in that one after how race number 1 started for them. They were part of the start checkup. We'll take one more look at this one though, Samuel. This is a bizarre one, and you know, it really shows just how hard these guys are pushing. Next level trying to carry momentum on the outside, and well, Laps at Racing, the unfortunate victim.
Have you seen that meme which features, I don't know if it's from Harry Potter or whatever, but there's this young little boy with this basket saying, "I'm going on an adventure," with all the bombs going behind in the background. That was what it was like for them, just scampering their way out of that, luckily. Well, tell you what, all the scampering is not going to happen here, because there are two teams, two bulls rather, fighting against each other, locking horns. This is going to be a battle for the ages. Altitude Esports versus Archer Brothers. What they do not want is to fight too hard and allow the other top competitors to come up closer, which would be Mac Performance, RSR Esports, and End Race. Wow, look at this.
The 56 car deep under braking. Oscar Coper is almost into the top 5 now, so that RSR car has climbed its way through the field, sent it deep under braking. Deep under braking into turn 3 as well. End Race follows them down the inside of the Xanity BMW. RSR up into 6th place right now behind them. Xanity challenging the Quasar car. Oh, this is fantastic stuff. And Oscar Copa, we talked about his performance, Sommel. He's 16 seconds behind the race leader right now. I think it's fair to say the challenge for the race win is done. However, there is a very strong possibility that Copa can get the... maybe get his car up into the 4th position, judging on performance and lap times, and maybe from there look to try and challenge for that 3rd and final podium position.
Copa seems to be lapping 3/10 faster than the leading cars per lap. Now, that is when he was fighting against other drivers. When he's got clean air right now, could easily be accelerated by 3 or 4 more tenths. So there is potential, and you're right, Arjuna, could very well get it in the top 5. And the drivers in the top 5 right now need to be wary of all these other cars coming behind, because behind Oscar D. Copa, Maxime Marriott is quite the force in the End Race Esports car. Then you've got the Lapsat machines coming up behind as well. It's all going to be so much fun. Meanwhile, Alexei Nezov is done in the HM Engineering machine. But wait a minute. Why have Team Hersenwald not made any positions at all? Andrei Rakovic and Matt Stock-Hutzfeld, both of them are languishing. Languishing would be the right word. All the way at the back of the field. Yes, there was that ill-timed launch that they made early on. But even since then, Arjuna, there has been no growth, there has been no development. This is huge for the championship.
Well, I think the answer, at least in the case of the 78, is very clear, at least from the rear shot. Damage to the rear portion of that car, and I have a feeling that for Team Heusingfeld, this remaining 38 minutes is just a struggle to get that car to the checkered flag and get the maximum results that they can from the position they're in right now. Battles up and down through the field. Leipert Esports side by side with Mayor SimSpeed Performance. Leipert trying to debut with a bang here into the IVRA GT Sprint Series. Not too happy is Kai Hischler on the flashing headlights button, which I'm sure at Daytona headlights aren't as necessary given the amount of ambient lighting that the track has and all of those floodlights that illuminate the racing surface. However, I'm sure that the headlight button is a must-have in terms of mapping. You want to just make sure that everyone knows how frustrated you are when you make a mistake. The sister car, by the way, Michael Strohbauer leading the championship in the number 55. He's trying to get a position on the Apex Missers up into 15th place. It's been a difficult reverse grid race for a lot of teams, I think. The Apex Missers, one of them, Sommel. Very good result in race number 1, but they've been unable to really push on and use some of the incidents around them to make some headway in this race number 2.
It's an excellent point that you mentioned, use incidents around you, because there are so many. It's hard not to be involved in one. Much like End Race Esports, they've been staying out of them, and they're making a move on the outside of the Qassar SimSport car. It's going to be a tougher line to follow, especially for the BMW, which does not lay down the power as easily as the Audi. So are they going to get the cut back? Kassar pushed them to the limit. They've got the outside line for this one, which would mean inside for the horseshoe. And yes, RaceSports with a clinically executed move around the outside. That, folks, is how you get it done.
Yeah, that was superbly executed. Like you said, just found the space, made sure he trusted the other car. It's such an important factor, trusting the other car to hold its line, to hold its lane in virtual racing and all of the difficulties that we experience with the realities of global networking. Update from Shipsky Racing, by the way. Their car, 40 minutes of repairs, so after that little incident that we saw down into turn 1, their race is over. Unfortunate for a team that we enjoy watching so much in IVRA competitions. They struggled a bit in the IVRA Club Cup series as well a couple of weeks ago in the Mazda MX-5 Cup cars, but good to at least have them out on track as the thing stands. We're watching a similarly colored car to the Shipsky Racing, but this is the French outfit, RaceSports in the 199. Maxime Marotte has now got past Yoni Waters and tries to close the gap to Oscar Koper. But meanwhile, you can see, top left portion of your screen by the way, Archer Brothers Esports are holding Mark Fletcher and the 111 honest. The gap 0.3 of a second. Samuel Robson not really over-committing at this stage of the race, and we're about to hit 25 minutes done in this race. Pit window will officially be open next time around. We'll see which teams want to come in and switch their drivers, because this is this interesting dynamic. If you're Koper, it's clear that your teammate has the pace of Ando. However, Koper is clearly one of the fastest drivers in this race weekend. Do you keep him out there as long as you can, or do you find track position, get Ovando out on track, and get him up to speed as quickly as possible? For other teams, for example, Mark Fletcher, who still leads this race, his teammate Ashley Beard is a very capable driver, but I think it's fair to say maybe not the same raw potential as Fletcher. How do you approach this from the lead of this race? Sommel, if you are Fletcher, what do you do in this position? You've got a slight, I don't want to say weaker driver again, because Beard did a fantastic job last time out to hold off the advances of Jonathan Sterling in the CXR Project Black Ford, but I think it's hard to explain what a great job Fletcher has done so far. That Ferrari has not been the strongest car this race weekend. The BOP does not favor it. However, Fletcher is out front and not really having too much of a challenge from behind.
You really know how to make the mind ramble on, Arjuna, don't you? You've really got me thinking in this case. I'm pondering quite a bit, and from all I can think in this case, because track position isn't much of an issue, you just extend it. You make it go as long as you possibly can. If Fletcher is your de facto man to extend the performance. You mentioned not having as much of a threat from behind. Well, Samuel Robson has been thereabouts per se. He's always been ensuring that Fletcher knows that there's a car behind him, but he's not quite been able to get that X factor in, and he's not quite able to make the pass. So Fletcher still relatively not under as much pressure. And speaking of one Oscar T. Koper, he's set a fastest lap and he's under pressure right now. Setting a fastest lap under pressure is immense.
No, sorry, Sommel. He's not under pressure. You know what he's just gone and done? He's just gone and found two cars in one corner. Oscar Koper. Goodness. What a drive this is right now. And you know what? We need to grab some replays of this pass, because Koper is a man on a mission. Here comes the challenge down in towards the pit entry here. So 3 wide across the start-finish line they go. Koper on the inside, Madsen in the middle. That forces the number 72 car to the high line. He's very content to just relax, give them the position, let them squabble for 4th and 5th on track. Number 72 now holds on to 6th place on the track. He will be very happy with that result, but now that's going to open the door for a nice little scrap here as pit window is officially open and the first cars have decided to come down onto pit road.
Man, as pit road opens, I just can't wrap my head around that stunning move that Oscar T. Koper made right there. I thought for a second he was under pressure from 2 cars, and then he just passed 2 cars in one corner. Crazy. And the best part is he kept his composure and got the fastest lap, because normally when you're fighting against other cars, you automatically get slowed down. Everyone gets slowed down in the back, but no, not Oscar T. Koper. Went in and got those positions.
But I think the double draft that he was getting might be one of the reasons why he's got the fastest lap of this race. We'll see what happens to that fastest lap marker in the remaining 31 minutes. Coper doesn't come down the pit lane. None of the top drivers have, or rather top teams have elected to switch over just yet. Madsen applies the pressure to Coper behind, but in his Audi. Gonna struggle a little bit, you would have to assume, to get the move done, especially given the pace that Coper has shown. More and more cars are electing to come down the pit lane. N-Race Esports, the first of the major teams to blink. They're followed down by the Apex Missers, Mayor SimSpeed Performance, Team Hoisingfeld in their 48 car, and a number of other drivers. Out front, by the way, Robson doing a good job here, Samuel. It's been a... Fletcher had the pace, I think, when he first got the move done, but Robson has been quite stubborn. He's still in that rear view mirror, bobbing his head and just saying, hello, I'm here, don't forget about me. And, well, 30 minutes to go with the driver change still to go. Anything can happen here.
I guess in a case like this one, where you know that beating the other person purely in terms of pace can be, let's say, out of reach, at least in the current circumstances, the next best thing you can do, and it really makes a world of difference as we see Mark Fletcher facing a few internet issues, is to keep on being there, keep on irritating them, keep on applying that pressure that you spoke about, Arjuna, because when you constantly see a car in the mirror, chances are you will end up making that mistake. And now Samuel Robson is getting ever so closer. He's done a very respectable job in the Archer Brother car. Is he going to make that one key move that he's not been able to make for a while? Not quite. The pit window well and truly open. Oh, look at this. He gets close, mind you.
Well,
very close.
He actually lifted a little bit, doing a bit of fuel saving, so interesting to see there. Not sure exactly why you'd fuel save. Again, it's more just about options, right? But I don't think he's been saving that much, so I'm not sure what the options are going to be. We are approaching, by the way, one of the Team Hoisingveld machines. I believe that's the one that's just come out of the pit lane. That's the 48, so they're about to go a lap down, at least on track for the moment. They'll get that lap back, of course, when the leaders dive onto the lane. Probably 2 more laps available for the teams to come down the pit lane, this one and the next. A reminder that the way that drive time works in IVRA competitions isn't using the race clock, it's instead using the actual lap times of the car and the number of laps that each driver completes, so that is calculated by hand. Race control going to be busy after the race. There was an update to the regulations specifically for this race, Samuel. We've talked about the pit lane rule, about using the fast lane and the slow lane in the correct manner on a number of occasions, but given that this is such a wide pit lane, race control making the judgment that 3 seconds is a bit too harsh for teams, so they've widened that window, and instead it's now 5 seconds that we expect to see cars going from the fast lane into their pit boxes.
Doesn't sound like a lot, but I'll be honest, when you get to executing it, it makes a world of difference that here they are, the leaders onto the pits. Keep a close eye on the Oscar T. Cooper RSR car and the Nick Madsen Mac Performance machine. Are they going to box? No, they're not. They stay out.
So they are going that one extra lap along with Jose Alonso, it must be said, in the Pro Driver Esports car. Ashley Beard.
Where's the safety car? What's it doing there?
The safety car has just decided that that is the safest place for it to be, well out of the way apparently, but Ashley Beard has gotten into the 111. Liam Matthews behind the wheel of the 202 for Archer Brothers Esports. We wait for them to head off the pit road. Archer Brothers, of course, led us to the green, so they've got that prime pit position. And they're going to come out about 1.5 seconds behind Ashley Beard. Ashley Beard able to get up to racing speed a bit quicker through this tricky pit exit, which, as mentioned, in the real world now is under speed limit until you get all the way till that merge point. Let's rejoin then the cars that are themselves joining back up with NASCAR's 1 and 2 as they've completed the infield section for what will be their final time before they hand it over to their teammates. Oscar Coper, of course, will hand it over to Boris Ovando. Nick Madsen will hand it over to Michael Schlack. So, 3 drivers yet to pit, and they are the top 3 in the standings. Pro Driver Esports in the 24, RSR Esport by G Performance in the 56, and Mag Performance Sim Racing in the number 14. It's looking like a 2-horse race for the race win. It's looking like Altitude Esports are going to have to hold off the advances of the Archer Brothers Esports team. But for 3rd place, it's looking like there is going to be a bit of a scrap. You've got these 3 cars that are all working their way onto pit road this time around. They're all now separated by car lengths rather than seconds. Cars then onto the lane. Madsen, Koper, and Alonso will hand it over to their teammates. Let's check back in, though, with the rest of the group. Liam Matthews has gotten into that car, and Sommel, look at that gap. 2.4 seconds already is the advantage that Ashley Beard has, and that is going to be a not insignificant gap to overcome. The draft is now something that Audi is no longer benefiting from, so that's going to be a struggle for them.
That's what Team Ersingwell came on and said during the interviews, that the draft is going to be so critical to ensure your finishing position, because once you're out of the tow, it can be very hard to gain positions in the infield. So here are these folks coming out. Nick Madsen, wait, yeah, they have gained a position. They have indeed, yes.
Yeah, there was a change of position then on pit road. The Mag Performance team able to get by Boris Evando by virtue of spending about 2 seconds less on pit road and indeed in the stop itself. So slight differences there in the pit lane time have manifested in a track position change. Now that everyone has gotten through the pit window, though, 25 minutes left to go, so everyone has gotten out of the car. That would be trouble for them if not. But let's walk you through the top 8 as they run. Altitude Esports looking good for a 2nd consecutive win here in race number 2. Ashley Beard has a bit of defensive driving to do, but not as much as he did last time out at Donington. Archer Brother Esports then 2.3 seconds back. They've got a pretty comfortable hold of the 2nd step of the podium, but in 3rd place with a less secure spot, it's Pro Driver Esports in the number 24. Just 3 seconds behind them, Mag Performance Sim Racing and Michael Schlacks in the Audi trying to chase them down. RSR Esport by G Performance, race 1 winners in the number 56, also trying to get back onto the podium. N-Race Esports, well, they're a little bit further behind, 22 seconds behind the race leader. They've got 2 cars in close pursuit, the Awesome Motorsport Group and one of our favorite cars in this field, the venerable old Ford GT and CXR Project Black. So that is the top 8 as they run. Gaps slightly wider than we might anticipate. You can follow along with the top 3 throughout the remaining 23 minutes in the top left-hand portion of your screen. We're going to focus right now on this battle for 4th position. Mag Performance and the RSR team doing battle as they also try and close in on the Pro Driver BMW that sits in 3rd. Evando sets up the outside line. He's going to try and cut back, get the power down into the International Horseshoe. A little bit too far behind this time around, but I have a feeling, Sommel, this is going to be a battle that we see all the way till the end. Evando doesn't have the same out-and-out performance that his teammate does. However, that RSR car, clearly one of the best in the field.
It's funny that those 2 seconds have cost RSR Esports far more time, because they're going to be sitting behind and wasting so much of time trying to pass Michael Schlacks right there in the Mag Performance machine. So yeah, it's clearly cost them more than just track position. It's eventually costing them time. Had they not done that, perhaps, who knows, they could have closed up to the Pro Driver car, maybe got P3 in their advantage. Who knows? Lots of ifs and buts in the world of racing, as it is with life in general. But yeah, Evando has to do a lot of chasing, lots of closing up. Meanwhile, Ashley Beard in the Altitude car has created somewhat of a gap, 2.9 seconds now. And heading into 3 seconds as we come towards the first braking zone. So clearly working well for the Altitude Esports car. But now, of course, this major battle between Boris Angel-Evado and Michael Schlacks, the one to watch out for. Meanwhile then, Paul Searle seems to be under pressure, Arjuna. The Ford GT is under pressure from behind.
He is under pressure. There's a little bit of a group formed with the Awesome Motorsport group. I actually think the Ford has just gotten past the number 72, but around the outside now, Evando's going to look. The grunt of the BMW has already powered him to a slight advantage. Indeed, he's going to cut across and get the position done as we cross the start-finish line. So Evando up into 4th position. The gap out front to Felipe Valentin in the number 24. 2.3 seconds, so let's see if that BMW that has been one of the strongest cars that we've seen this season, can they make their way onto that 3rd and final step on the podium. Let's check in, by the way, at the tail end of the top 10, because look at this. Look at this queue of cars that's forming right now. You see the number 55 championship leader, Anthony Pisano, driving for the RSR team. Currently running in 10th, trying to run away from this grouping of cars behind them. And you've got a number of strong teams here. You've got the Pro Driver Esports team in their BMW. You've got Xanady Motorsports. You've got Leipert Esports, Team Oblivion Racing, the Apex Missers. It's a really strong grouping of cars, and I think right now what we're seeing, Sommel, is almost a mirror image of what we saw in race number 1. It was very close in the first stint of the race between the two leaders. However, after the pit stop, that lead was a bit more secure for the car that led the majority of race number 1, right? The same thing that kind of happened there. And now all of these battles are developing further back in this pack as we see Leipert Esports really haranguing now the rear end of Xanady Motorsports.
Yeah, that's what you kind of expect with IVRA competition, isn't it? So many lumps and bumps for all the teams all the way through, but they eventually all iron out the creases and make up for such a fun race towards the very end. Exactly what we're getting to see right now. Apex Missers, interestingly, are right there behind Team Oblivion. Is that is? I guess so, yeah. And it should be very interesting because Apex Missers... Oh, speak about that later on. Because the big move that we expected has happened. RSR Esports have made the jump on Mac Performance Sim Racing. They have been liberated. They've lost a lot of time, mind you. Here they go then.
Well, actually, they've already closed the gap. We saw that move the last time around down into turn number 1. The gap to the 3rd place car is already down to 1.8 seconds. So, I mean, Slacks is actually in a very good spot now that I think about it. If Avando has got the performance to close the gap out front, why not just tuck in right behind and think about the opportunity for that 3rd and final podium position? If I am Michael Schlacks right now, I'm trying to plot so that as we approach Felipe Valentin, I've got the perfect draft from Avando, I can get the perfect draft from Valentin, and 2 into 1 sometimes is the best move. So I think Michael Schlacks right now might be plotting away, thinking about that 3rd position that's awaiting, that closing now. The gap's already down to 1.3 seconds, so this is going to happen in about 2 laps time, this move, or at least this battle for 3rd place, Samuel. It is something where this reverse grid race has put someone like Valentin out in this position where he's now got these 2 strong cars coming up from behind, just like we were hoping for.
Absolutely. It's going to be fun to see what Felipe Valentin can do to defend from these 2 stalwarts charging through from behind. My apologies for that one. I almost thought the RSR car got the move a bit later on. Just a clear lapse of mine, but yeah, they come. Actually, it's very interesting from Michael Schlacks, and he can just sit behind. Does not need to do any fuel saving as such, but the smart thing from both of them is just to parlay together, and instead of scratching each other on the face and downing each of their performances, just work together and try and grab hold of the other cars in front of them. And that is what's working in this case, because already the pressure is on Felipe Valentin. Look at this. They're almost, not even almost, they are well and truly within sight.
Yeah, they're getting that nice dose of draft down through the infield section in towards the 2nd of the hairpins here. Gap now officially under 1 second. So in a certain other racing series which is happening right now, they'd have the aid of a rear wing adjustment on the rear end of the car. There was an issue, by the way, I've just noticed on my timing screen, down into turn 1 for Manuel Mayer in the Mayer SimSpeed Performance car, side by side with the Roaring Chicken Nuggets. The Chicken Nuggets lose it by themselves on the entry, and oh no, that's going to be a very disappointed Manuel Mayer there. I'm trying to think of a pun here that's not going to frustrate the German, but I'm sure he's going to be plenty frustrated as is.
Well, chicken nuggets are probably the biggest rivals of sausages, and if you have to go for sausages, that probably was the worst move we've seen them make today.
Well, that's a pun. That was a pun. At least that's for sure. RSR, the sister
Not
car.
a good or bad one.
I never made a comment on that. The sister car for RSR, by the way, side by side with Quasar into the bus stop. They're going to try and power down through the second portion of the corner. Here comes Pro Driver in their BMW as well. RSR trying to get 2 cars up into the top 10. Will be a good performance from them. They're sliding up and down the track as they try and get the run on the Audi. The two Audis and 2 BMWs mixing it up right now, showing us that the BOP in this class is quite close and quite fair. RSR to the outside though, across the start-finish stripe we go. The Quasar car just a nose in front. The 55 is gonna send it deep under braking once again, just try and cut back, get on the power, but he's now got to fend off Lippert. Esports side by side through turn 2. Lippert gets shoved off very slightly. That's gonna force Pro Driver into the grass. They managed to hold on to it, but this is getting a bit tense. 15 minutes to go right now. A lot more aggression is starting to be shown there. You saw the commitment from Pisano there under braking, Sommel. I mean, he really went very, very deep down into turn number 1.
It's just a clear indication of Pisano being desperate to get that position in, and why would you not be desperate? 15 minutes to go. You can see other cars that you can get with your own pace right in front of you, just like his teammate. Oh, goodness me, the RSR car has really caught up here, going on the inside of Felipe Valentin, and nice and clear at the bus stop. That's checkbox number 2 done for them.
Well, I guess now, I think you must ask the question. 15 minutes to go, gap between the number 56 and the 202 is about 8 seconds.
Oh.
And yes, I know, no more draft being aided to a Vando. However, let's take a look at the lap gaps. They are going to go side by side for just a few moments' time.
More than that. They're coming to the outside.
I know, I'm still thinking what Schlack's going to do here. Is he going to try and poke his nose to the inside, get the move done on Pro Driver? RSR doesn't have to defend the challenge through turn 2. Into the international horseshoe. Schlack thinks about it, then thinks better of it. Tries to get the cutback, the switchback as it were, powers it down. I'm just trying to think right now. This is 14 minutes to go, so we're looking at about 10 laps according to my timing screen. This could be something where if we get a second per lap, which is not out of the realm of possibilities looking at those lap gaps there, Sommel. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility for Evander to get this done as Schlack forces his way down the inside, also goes through on the Pro Driver car. I think he sees Ovando has an opportunity for second here, and he wants to follow Ovando all the way to the checkered flag.
I'm going to channel my inner Murray Walker for this one. I'm just simply going to say it's one thing to catch up. It's now a completely different ball game to pass, even if the circuit is as giving as Daytona. Liam Matthews in the Archer Brother car seems to have realized, so he's picked up his pace. So instead of a gap being around 1.1 seconds, he's closer down to what, 6/10 a lap. Recently, Liam Matthews so he's clearly realized that and is responding well to the pressure. But you're right, Arjuna, could very well be possible. For that, though, Boris Angelevando will have to be digging extremely deep in, and he'll have to find, some really outrageous laps all the way through. Possible? Yes. Probable? Seems unlikely.
He's just been aided by the Quasar Ferrari that's come down onto pit lane. They're already 7 laps down. He's not going to pose a problem in terms of traffic for the 56. Gap down to 7.8. Schlack's going side by side through turn number 1 for a few moments' time. I have a feeling Schlack's is now getting compromised by this battle with Felipe Valentin, but I have an inkling here, Sommel. It's going to be below 1 second come the end of the race here. I think Ovando is on a charge, and I think he's got an opportunity to get onto the second step of the podium here.
Yeah, it'll take some battling for that. He'll have to fight his way through, and it seems like a tough challenge, doable for sure. We'll have to do something interesting. Meanwhile, oh, look at this one. Look at this battle in the midfield around here. Helsingwell, who had a bit of damage, what they say, let's go all the damage. Let's try and make as many moves as we possibly can. That's not the best place in the world to make a move, mind you, Arjuna. Just thinking better off it at the kink. Thank goodness he did.
Oh, slight contact in front. Xanity, I think, contact with Team Oblivion Racing there. So, bit of a check up through the second of the hairpins. You now work the left-hand corner that brings you back on to the world-famous banking. Gets you back on towards NASCAR's 1 and 2. There's about 8 cars in a train right now. Let's check back in. Let's a brief check-in here with second place Liam Matthews, because he's 5 seconds behind the race leader right now. Ashley Beard is off and away very comfortably with the race lead. The 111 looking good, it must be said. But as Matthews crosses the line once again, Sommel gap down to 6.7 seconds. That was a whole second gain from Evando last time around. We've got about 8 laps to go, I think. I mean, this is going to come down all the way to the final lap. I said it. I said it's going to be close. And I think we're really going to get that delivered.
Start rubbing your hands, folks. Start grabbing the popcorn, because trust me, in 5 minutes' time, you'll want to be chewing on all of that if Boris Angelovando gets rather close. Man, if that happens, you can kind of expect Liam Matthews to be shoved hither and yon, considering all the pace that Angelovando has got back there. But still tough ask, Arjun. I'm still buzzing. I'm still sitting on the edge of my seat, not knowing what's going to happen in this case. It's fascinating. This is why sprint racing is often. But another thing that really intrigues me is this battle in the midfield, because Anthony Pisano, although he's got positions up, Lucas Cowper from the Liper Esports car just says, "No, Anthony, I'm not going to let go of you. You know this fact. You have to keep on defending. I'm going to keep on irritating you." And that battle in the midfield for the top 10 positions, really very, very fun.
It is fun indeed. What's someone not having so much fun is Mayer's SimSpeed performance. Manuel Mayer has, unfortunately got involved in the contact on the start. Really just set the tone for both of our 60-minute sprint races. Here's a replay, just getting onto the grass on the outside, looking to the outside of one of the laps at Racing Ferraris, the 11, but rears it into the barrier, back up to racing speed. He's running in 22nd place. He's not the last car on the lead lap. That honor goes to the Team Hoisingveld 48 car, but for the 73 car, they'll want to return next time at Zandvoort with a bit more in terms of their performance. Jumping forward, Sommel mentioned the RSR car that's now looking to the outside. Awesome Motorsports Group have been falling through the field here in the reverse grid race. They've done a good job, it must be said, to at least stick on the edge of the top 10 for the large majority of this one. But as we work 10 minutes to go in this race, RSR to the outside. The championship leader, Pisano, doesn't want to take any risks. He's going to sweep around the outside, commit under braking, and get it done. The Apex Misters going very deep as well as they commit to the corner. And indeed, that entire group getting slightly checked up. The Awesome Motorsport Group team defends the inside, forces a couple of cars to look to the outside. Lippert Esports just going to slot back in, I think. They're going to try and get the run to the outside, but through this left-hand kink, never really an option, and it compromises your run into the next hairpin, so... Here comes Lippert setting up the outside. This is where you can try the over-under potentially, but you do have to watch out for the pro driver BMW behind that now sticks its nose up the inside and has managed to get the move done. Lippert Esports shoved off into the grass. They lose 2 positions there. And now pro driver up into the top 10, and they take over the position of putting the pressure onto the Ferrari in front. It's a great action, and this is only, if you can believe it, for the 10th place on the track.
But there's no battle. There's no battle that's too small. All of them are so interesting. The most gripping stuff happens, interestingly, when there's no grip on the track at all. Here comes pro driver again, and they've got it done yet again.
Ooh, the Awesome Motorsports Group getting very, very compromised, and that's really checked up Lippert as well. Here comes the Apex Misters trying to carry some momentum. It's also going to bring in Team Oblivion Racing, Quasar, the 26 Xanity Motorsport, that group behind, which is now catching up very slightly. Apex Misters on the high line, not going to be the preferred line, but here they go, tuck back into the draft, get all the way up to the rear wing, look to the inside. They get covered off by the Audi. And indeed, they just lift off the throttle very slightly, back up the corner, and concede for now. The Awesome Motorsports Group, though, dive into the corner, deep under braking, Lippert down the inside. The Apex Misters trying to get down the inside as well. But instead, the International Horseshoe will allow the opportunity for the 72 to hold on. Here comes the number 64 in Team Oblivion Racing. All of this track position battle happening out on track. Team Oblivion side-by-side, door-to-door contact. They were lucky to get away with that one, Sommel. That was close to near disaster.
That's what happens towards the end of the race, where all the pressure starts to kick in, when the desperacy for the positions becomes ever so higher. You see drivers doing things that you would normally not seeing them do. Here, everything seems to be still alright, I would say, but you never know when it could spill out of hand and when it could just turn into an absolute calamity for so many of those involved. Meanwhile, Kasasim Racing getting ever so closer, and that Team Horsingwell car, man, they've been in such misery here today.
Team Horsingwell have actually just managed to get past that Quasar Audi, but the fight back comes down into the bus stop chicane. Are they going to sweep around the outside? Hoisingveld says, no, thank you. I'm going to hold my position there. Very, very bold in holding off the challenge, and that's going to compromise those two cars behind. In the meantime, opens the door for the Hoisingveld car to chase the group in front. Awesome Motorsports Group is dragging along that Audi. Team Oblivion Racing now have managed to get past the Apex Missers. This is amazing stuff. The Hoisingveld machine just looking at this like a kid in a candy store. He's trying to pick what does he want. Where does he want to go? Apex misses to the outside then. Forces Team Oblivion Racing to look to the inside. Awesome Motorsports Group covering both of those lines off. Hoisingveld's going to sneak a nose up the inside of the Apex Missers in towards turn 2. Oh, it's not going to work out. They're just a hair behind into the braking zone for turn 3. They'll try and sweep around the outside of the corner, but the Apex Missers rubs on them, leans on them through the exit of the corner. Hoisingveld continues to hold the outside, and that's going to give them the position. Fantastic battling there, and still side by side. In fact, the Apex Missers doesn't want to give this one up, tries to challenge it back under braking, but eventually, contact's made. Hoisingveld around, Hoisingveld in trouble.
Some resolute driving with the Apex Missers team has just led to some proper netcode crashing. Horsingwell, after some rather determined racing, they just got their way through, really rubbed past, and then, well, Binala.
Spinala indeed. It was a bit of an aggressive move. Let's take a look on board with the Apex Missers. You can see the Hoisingveld car tries to cover them off. The Apex Missers not really missing the apex of the corner there, just a little bit deep onto the corner, and that's what causes some issues. Oh wow, another replay to take a look at. Felipe Valentin, what's happened to the Pro Driver Esports driver? Coming into the bus stop chicane with 5 minutes left on the clock. Oh, just a little bit too much curb. The rear end gets light, steps out from underneath him, and that Pro Driver car stricken in the middle of the track. He's lost 3 positions as a result, and now languishes in 7th position. Meanwhile, Max Riedmüller off the track in the bus stop as well. Riedmüller has reset, so the number 78 is now back in the pit lane. He's called it quits, as it were, Sommel. So that's one of our championship leaders with some major, major drama in the closing stages of this race.
The championship table literally is going to be flipped upside down here at the end of this particular race, but what I'm really concerned about is that Felipe Valentin crash. Now, because of that, and even before that rather, this gap is closing down. RSR Esport by G Performance are getting ever so close. So you mentioned, Arjuna, that they could be getting closer, but 3 minutes, 3 seconds, sounds unlikely, but Boris Angelovando has still put in quite the performance. But Felipe Valentin, that crash we saw there from the Pro Driver's car, a very clear case of a classic Audi mistake. That car, in medium to high speed corners, can be a bit of a beast to handle. And when you come to the latter part of this race, when you see another car pressurizing you from behind, so possible. Look at this meanwhile.
The Apex Missers finally get the move done on the Awesome Motorsports Group. That number 72 Ferrari has done a stellar job to hold on to its starting position for much of this race, but finally dropping down the order, they now run in unlucky 13th spot. They'll be hoping at least to hold on to that 13th spot for now, though. Apex Missers not missing that apex to get the move done, and that's kind of broken up our groups for the most part. Here's the main action that we're focusing on. Bump draft from the BMW to the Audi as they approach the start-finish line. That was a bit aggressive, and indeed the Audi's going to cover off the BMW. just voicing its displeasure with that shove down the main straightaway. In through turns 1 they go. They're just about 1 and a bit seconds behind the RSR by G Performance BMW. That's the championship leader that struggled here in race number 2. And, well, let's just interrupt this action that we've been watching, Samuel, because it's fair to say that we really haven't talked about Altitude Esports and Ashley Beard since he got into the car. He's had a pretty substantial gap. His teammate Mark Fletcher had a bit more of pressure to handle and overcome, but Beard has, as opposed to last time out where it was the defensive driving that gave him the race win, what it's looking like right now is absolute composure from Beard. Has put himself in this position where he's got 1 more lap to go and they'll take home a 2nd consecutive race number 2 victory.
Yeah, it's been quite the performance. It seems almost like Altitude Esports have realized and mastered this template of racing in the reverse grid races. It'll be 2 consecutive race number 2 wins for them. Let's see how it progresses as the season goes on, but you've got to say, if there's one team who knows how to get it done on this stage, in this particular format, with this competition, it's them. And it's not just that they're benefiting from all the drama behind, they're doing a stellar job. Meanwhile, Qassar Sim Racing, Qassar Sim waiting as they have lost the position in this lap.
Well, the Canadian outfit has to hold behind the French team, and they've got a German team behind them. So this really is a truly international series. You can check out the wing end plates for the countries that each of these teams are representing. So Canada for the Audi in the middle, Germany for the Audi at the rear, and I believe Xanadu Motorsports, a French outfit, probably have the French tricolor on their wing end plates. Outside then for the NJB Audi as he tries to challenge Quasar and Aaron Eccles. Not going to work out this time around. 15 seconds left on the clock then. Where is your race leader? Well, for Ashley Beard, coming around NASCAR's 1 and 2. It's been an interesting race weekend for them. Race number 1 didn't go as smoothly as they would have liked, and in much the same way to a couple of weeks ago at Donington, misfortune in race number 1 lent itself to victory in race number 2. Beard's teammate Fletcher drove a stunning opening stint of the race, a fantastic pass for the lead that cemented their spot out front. And since they got into the car, Ashley Beard has run away with the lead of this race. The gap behind, almost up to 6 seconds, but it doesn't matter what the gap is. All that matters is they're the first across the start-finish line. Altitude Esports take home another one of our reverse grid wins, and, well, for the 111, I'm sure the celebrations will begin, as well as the preparation for the next time we go racing at Zandvoort. Fantastic stuff then from Altitude Esports and Ashley Beard, and I personally cannot wait to talk to both Ashley and Mark and try and understand their success in these reverse grid races, Samuel, because it's absolutely unbelievable, the quality of consistency, right? Because reverse grid races are so much luck. To be able to consistently do the same thing twice in a row, it's just unbelievable, and I think a well-deserved victory for the Altitude team today.
It's not a mistake, it's not just luck on their side. They knew and understood the situation, understood the battlefield, because sometimes the battlefield is more chaotic than others. They thrive in this situation, they know what to do, and they just make things calm for them. And because they're able to make things calmer for themselves, this time out they didn't have to defend as much as they did in Donington. Everything was under control, and so they become the team to claim the checkered flag. But also, Archer Brothers Esports too, you've got to keep an eye on them. What a performance. Although they finished 6 seconds behind, they still take home a 2nd place result, which is very, very good.
So all our finishers across the line, Team Hoisingveld and the number 48, the last finisher on track. Let's go ahead and just run you through then race results from our reverse grid race. And so Ashley Beard takes the checkered flag for a 2nd consecutive race weekend. You complete the on-track action by being the first car across the line, but 5 and a bit seconds was the gap to Liam Matthews in the Archer Brothers Esports machine. Samuel Robson did a good job to hold on to the back of Mark Fletcher in the 111 in the first stint, but Matthews unable to find the pace to match Beard. Boris Avando drove that car to 3rd place with some impressive overtakes at the closing portions of the race, but the pace must be attributed as well to his teammate Oscar Koper, who did a fantastic job in both races to bring that car to a double podium finish. Mag Performance Sim Racing and Michael Schlacks lines up in 4th, with N-Race Esports just 2 seconds behind them in 5th. CXR Project Black in the lone 4GT in the field, they end up 19th. Not as impressive as their 2nd place finish last time around, but consistency for 383 is starting to be an important thing. Pro Driver Esports in the 24, they finish in 7th after that lace race issue. The number 55 championship leading car finishes down in 8th. Leipert Esports, just half a second behind the number 55. They make their debut in the IVRA GT Sprint Series with some impressive results. Pro Driver Esports in the number 58, they will round out the top 10 for our reverse grid race, 35 seconds behind the race winner. 11th through 20th was where much of our action happened throughout both of our races, and in this second race, Team Oblivion takes home 11th with the Apex Missers in close pursuit. The Awesome Motorsports group unable to hold on to their impressive starting position, but Pierre Burmeister doing a good job to get that car to the finish in a clean fashion. Xanity Motorsports recover up to 14th, NJB Performance in 15th, with Quasar Sim Racing in 16th. The 777 for Team Vikings ends up in 17th, with the sister Altitude Esports car all the way down in 18th. The Roaring Chicken Nugget struggles again here in race number 2 on the edge of the top 20. The Lapset Racing team number 11 in 20th place. We'll run you through the final 9 finishers then, only 2 of them finishing on the lead lap. Mayor Sim Speed Performance and Team Hoysinkveld, the 48, the last 2 runners on the lead lap. The number 78 for Team Hoysinkveld, one of the championship contenders, having to retire late on. That will compromise their points haul as well. Shake up the championship standings that we can show you next time around. Quasar Sim Racing in the second of their cars, Garrett Thompson 7 laps down. .exe, the only McLaren in the field, they're 17 laps down. Next Level Racing, Lapset Racing Team, Shipsky Racing, then HM Engineering, the rest of the cars that didn't make it to the checkered flag. Well, we can take a breath for the first time in a couple of hours now and relax. Think about Zandvoort and start talking to some of our podium position finishers from race number 2. And Sommel, I tell you what, why don't you get started by talking to the winners from race number 2, the duo from Altitude Esports, Ashley Beard and Mark Fletcher.
Hello again.
Hello again indeed. It's great to have both of you guys here. Firstly, many congratulations, Ash and Mark. Lovely result once again. Where do we begin? So actually, Ashley, I'll talk to you first. You got the car across the checkered flag twice in a row. That second stint in both the races, I mean, of course, it was more tricky in Donington with all the defending that went on, but still, how does it feel this weekend with a bit less pressure towards in the final stint and still coming home as the winners?
Well, the car was mega. I mean, it just did what I wanted it to do. And when you've got a car like that, it's just so easy to keep on just finding temps around the circuit. And really, with Mark as well, he's great when he's spotting, so it's easy to relate information. So a lot less pressure than there was, say, at Donington, which I much prefer, to be honest, because I don't want to race like that again, because that was pressure at its finest. But just in a fantastic car tonight.
And Mark, what was the secret to that fantastic car? I mean, we don't want you to give away the entire setup, but still, what was it like? Any particular thing that you did to make it go faster this weekend?
We did a fair amount. We worked well as a team. We all go into the same sessions. We do a lot of practice together. To be fair, it's just the strategy. Worked out quite early on in the season that I was better through traffic. So to get us where we are, it's always, it worked at Donington, we tried it, and that's what we'll do for the rest of the season.
So can we say essentially that you found the way to crack these reverse grid races? Because it happens once in a while, but to see 2 wins in a row in the same format, it is mind-blowing, to be honest.
Yeah, it's something you've got to take into consideration, especially with the amount of driver time leeway there is. 10 minutes is a long time to, as you can see, Ash is pretty much at the same pace as me. So we're lucky that we've got a team where we're of the same pace. And the guys at RSR who finished third, they were coming. It was good that we had such a big gap, because they took 8 seconds out of us in the second stint, and we weren't going slow.
Absolutely, guys. What an awesome win this was. And are you going to follow the same strategy for Zandvoort? And lastly, who would you like to thank for this rather epic result? 2 in a row, this one.
Yeah, probably. In all honesty, you've seen that the strategy works for us. But yeah, we're looking forward to Zandvoort. It's less of a power track. We were worried here because the Ferrari is down on power compared to the BM. But yeah, just to thank, from me, everybody at the team that works together. And to our sponsors, which are Sim Stickers and also Sim Racing Studios.
Anyone from your end, Ashley?
Pretty much the same. The team, absolutely mega bunch of people. I mean, the amount of prep that goes behind the scenes, it just makes it great to be such part of a team, especially with the backing of Sim Stickers and Sim Racing Studios. It just makes it that much easier to get prepared, really. And thanks to you guys as well, because it's great exposure and you do a cracking job.
Well, many congratulations, folks. Another epic victory. What a drive. See you in Zandvoort, guys.
Thank you very much, guys. Take care.
Cheers.
And folks, the winners, Altitude Esports, the number 111. What a drive, Arjuna. They've just cracked it.
What a drive indeed, and such nice guys. You could hear the excitement in their voices about being in the booth with us for a second consecutive race outing. I'm sure they'll be hoping to make it 3 in a row next time at Zandvoort. Next, though, let's stand by with the 202 and the Archer Brothers Esports. And Sommel, why don't you talk to the driver duo of Samuel Robson and Liam Matthews?
Samuel, Liam, firstly, guys, many congratulations on a brilliant result, this one. Liam, firstly, I'll start with you. That second stint, let's say it was slightly less chaotic, but still very interesting, wasn't it? Just being very close to the leaders for a while, and then, of course, you guys drifted. But how satisfied are you with this result as a whole? P2 is pretty awesome.
Yeah, we have to be extremely satisfied, I think. Race 1 was about as chaotic as races go, and I think this series is really the only one where you can put the car in the wall at 200k and land it on pole, so we're lucky in that way. But Sam put in a great effort there first stint. Knew the Ferraris were kind of slow overall compared to other cars, but not altitude. They were way up front, and their goal was really just to stick in the draft and hope after the pits that we could stick in the draft too. But Ashley got away from us, so it's all about keeping Boris behind.
And Samuel, how do you feel like after this result? Because it's easily the biggest result of the season for your team. And it's so refreshing to see the team right up there in the podium places. What was it like in the first stint, honestly? Because that's what all the chaos was, honestly.
Yeah, I was very thankful for the guys who overtook me, and then I could then just follow in. They were a few tenths faster than me, so it was perfect for me. And yeah, I feel like the result's been coming for a while. We've just had a few issues here and there. We actually ended up with the most points from the pre-qualifying event. So yeah, we feel like it's been coming. So finally, it feels good to show you guys what we can do.
Absolutely. Samuel, Zandvoort's up next. That's going to be a very interesting track. Do you think a similar result can be expected there in that particular race?
It's going to be carnage, so whoever navigates that the best will get a good result. So hopefully not sure about a podium, but we're always aiming for top 5s. That's our targets for most races. There's some really fast guys here, and we need a bit of luck to get in that top 5.
Well, hopefully that luck is on your side in Zandvoort. Folks, who would you like to thank for this rather awesome result here today, lastly?
Well, thanks to you guys. Thanks to all of the IVRA guys. Thanks to the Archer Brothers guys and our sponsors, Forge Line, Team Tech, and Skull Sim Gear.
Many congratulations, folks. Pleasure to have a chat with you and
Thanks,
see you with the
guys.
result. It's a good one.
Can't wait to watch the broadcast.
Thanks, guys.
Should be fun.
So that was the second place finishers. And again, it's so great to speak to some of these guys, Samuel, and hear the excitement, right? Because these reverse grid races, there's so many series where there's only a small subset of the entry list that can win. But here in the reverse grid races, anyone can achieve any result. And I think you could hear there's a lot of excitement in the 202 camp. And I'm sure for next time out, they mentioned the chaos at Zandvoort. Not much planning can be done, and it's all just about heading in there with an open mind and open expectations.
Absolutely, and also, Arjuna, not just for winning, it's also about all these teams. Not all of them are as big as all the bigger ones, so they can't put in as much time and resources. But even to see their sponsors getting a lot of media time by virtue of these races, it's quite satisfying. It's very heartwarming to see these relatively smaller organizations shine at such a huge stage. It's really fascinating.
I tell you what, let's have one more interview before we head off the air and wrap it up for this race weekend. And let's talk to the duo from the RSR by G Performance number 56, Boris Avando and Oscar Koper, who were two of the quickest drivers throughout this weekend's action. And Boris, let's start with you, because you started the car in race number 1. Race number 1 seemed like an interesting kind of position, because there wasn't much fighting up front. It was very much, until the pit stops, more of a just hold your position, and you just had to give the car in a good condition to your teammate, and from there, Oscar was running away at the front of the field.
That's right. It was a very different race from race 2, and props to Oscar, because that start on race 2 was very difficult. There was a lot of traffic, just nose to tail racing, and he made the best of it.
And Oscar, let's just talk to you, because like I was saying, you really seem like one of the quickest drivers out on track this entire day of action. So how excited were you about this race when you saw it on the calendar? Is this a track that you like a lot and you feel comfortable at? And how do you think you're going to be able to carry over some of this speed to a very different track like Zandvoort?
Daytona is one of my favorite tracks. I've always been pretty quick at it. Like most of my endurance races I've done at Daytona, so I know the track inside out. And I've driven the BMW the entire season in VRS, so it's just a combination of knowing the car, knowing the track, and it just clicks.
Well,
how that carries over to Zandvoort, it's my home track. I've had good results this season there, so I'm excited.
Okay, so there's the first time I think we've actually had someone sound excited for a place like Zandvoort. But Boris, I'll ask you one question before we let you go, because you and your sister car, the 55, are both in positions for the championship right now. We're at the halfway point, and this is where, at the start of the broadcast, we were talking about knowing which teams that we wanted to focus on going into the second portion of the season. It's 3 very difficult tracks, I think, in terms of the racing itself. You've got Zandvoort, Road Atlanta, and the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. None of them known for being, particularly forgiving or wide, and I have a feeling that this championship battle is not just going to be about ultimate speed, but also about racecraft and being in the right position at the right time.
You're definitely right about that, and we have a tough battle with our sister car there. They have a lot of pace, and hopefully we can make the most out of the teamwork, continue to progress with the setups, and just put both cars in position to potentially win. And it'll be a very exciting next 3 races, I think.
Well, before we let you guys go to celebrate and start planning for Zandvoort, anyone you want to thank from the team? Because obviously, big team effort. You had the double podium in the first race, and good to get at least the double podium for the number 56 across both races as well.
Go ahead, Boris.
Well, definitely Anthony Pisano, manager of the team, pushes us a lot, and I think without his encouragement, it'd be very tough to get to the level that we've gotten to. I think we've progressed a lot, and I hope we continue to do that. So props to Michael as well. I think we make a great team.
So there was the duo for RSR Esport by G Performance, Oscar Koper and Boris Avando. They won race number 1 and 3rd place in race number 2. I think that might be one of the more consistent race results that we've seen from any team so far in this not unique format, let's say, Samuel, because it's such a common sprint racing format across, both real and virtual racing, but it has been a format that, for the first time, I've really felt like it's just mixed things up in that race number 2, because every time we really don't know what's going to happen. Ashley Beard becoming the first 2-time winner in that race number 2, and I mean, ultimately, who's going to actually... You can't sit there right now, Sobel, and tell me that you feel confident about saying that Ashley Beard is going to be talking to us again in a few weeks' time.
The answer? I don't know. And that's what gets viewers hooked on to the next race. That's the best part. You've got to have that element of uncertainty. When you know everything, when you want to tune into a broadcast and say, yeah, but why should I watch it? That's what's happening with Formula 1, by the way. Thank goodness for the driver swaps, but that's the beautiful thing about IVRA competition. You never know. And it's not that it's too unpredictable for bad measure, it's just the right amount. Where you have lots of changes going on, but it's not to an extent where you frustrate all the drivers and teams, because there is no way of keeping everyone happy. I mean, in Formula E, that goes all the way through. Drivers are just too angry that there is no chance to prove themselves. In IVRA, you have race number 1 for that. With race number 2, it's all about the spectacle, it's all about entertainment, and to a degree it's also meritocracy, because, okay, you won race number 1, get sent to the back and show us what you can do in that department. I think on the whole, it makes for a very good program to show the competitiveness of the drivers and the teams, while putting up an excellent show.
And we'll talk very briefly again about the remaining schedule here in the outro, in the post-race coverage, if you will. We want to just talk about one thing here, Samuel, because we got a busy weekend next weekend. We got 2 days of action across IVRA competition. Saturday, we must also say, it takes place entirely from the Barber Motorsports Park. We start on Saturday with our two and a bit hours of club sport racing from Barber, and then on Sunday we hand it over to the endurance series. So in total, once you include the MX-5 Cup cars as well, we're looking at about 6 hours of just racing action next weekend, and I think that totals up to about 8 or 9 hours of total coverage on RaceSpotTV. So viewers can tune into RaceSpot next weekend for even more IVRA competition.
I just hope that it's going to be good. We saw some pandemonium in Phillip Island, which is a track that can be linked somewhat to Barber Motorsports Park, but that's the best thing about IVRA. As I said, you never know what to expect. Could turn out to be a wild one, could turn out to be a really clean, fun one as well. I hope it's the latter. But if there's one thing we've seen time and again from IVRA competition, it's just good racing. Sometimes crashes do make their way in, but what we saw today was just IVRA competition at its finest.
Well, IVRA competition at its finest, and so fine that it's apparently decided that my camera doesn't want to work consistently. So you can enjoy that frozen image of my face if you want, but let's take a look at the schedule. 3 more rounds to go. We are officially halfway into the IVRA GT Sprint Series, and it has been one of the more interesting journeys so far. Silverstone produced the type of GT racing you'd expect. Donington produced a defensive driving display for the ages. Connery Maddock and myself both called it some of the best driving we can recall seeing in recent memory. Daytona then has delivered in the only way Daytona knows how, with constant side-by-side action. Now we look forward to 3 rounds in 2021 once we turn the calendar over to determine our championship. I just realized January 3rd, that means we've got less than a month to go, and we'll be coming to you right after the new year. We hope that everyone enjoys what is going to be a very difficult holiday period, I'm sure, for so many of you. But it is time to say goodbye then, and we'll be back next week for more IVRA competition. But for now, myself, Arjuna Kankipati, I've been joined by the one and only Samuel Aurora. As a reminder, TV cameras available to via Istvan Ballo and TrackCams22.com, with additional car cameras provided to us by our very own Tyler Maxon. Live timing and scoring available to us through our partners at Timing71. Head on over to timing71.org to catch a full replay of the live timing on that service. So that's going to be it then for 2020 in the IVRA GT Sprint Series, and we'll be back in 4 weeks' time on the other side of a new year from Circuit Zandvoort. I'm sure that's not going to be one that you want to miss, but for now, so long, and we'll see you next weekend.